It's Locked On Giants Live. Traina, dog. Next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Giants Live. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and I'm joined by the great Bad Dog, the great Taina. We are so happy to have you with us on this Friday night.
Yes, thank you, Patty. Thank you for that warm intro.
Oh, you know I love you guys.
We could always say the same thing about our team.
Yes, well,
we love them, but they haven't been great.
They haven't been great, but you guys have been great. And we finally had the gang together. Last week, we unfortunately didn't have Chris with us, but he's here tonight. So let's get this party started, guys. I mean, so before we came on, we were talking about how we came so close last week to a victory. But, you know, at the end of the day, a loss is a loss, a win is a win. But still, guys, what did you like from last week's game that you feel is something that this team can build on?
Yeah, first off, excited to be back. Last week, my sister messaged me last minute, and I had to pick her up at the airport. But I'm excited to be back talking Giants football with you guys. And, I think there was a lot to build off of last week. I know you don't want to hear that as a fan coming into a year where we all had much higher expectations. We were all thinking playoffs. But I think at this point, you got to kind of temper your expectations a bit. This team is banged up. They haven't looked the way that we thought that they would. I think the defense for the third straight week actually has shown significant improvement, significant growth. And that was by far their best game of the year. I think you start there. Deonte Banks continues to look really good as a rookie. We created, I think it was 2 turnovers. Bobby Okereke is looking more and more like a very good free agent signing. I think he's had a hand in every one of our turnovers that we've created this year. So the defense has been much better over the last couple of weeks. You could point to Tyrod. I thought Tyrod played as good as you could have hoped for a backup. He definitely made a couple of plays. People talked about how he took a few shots down the field. Yeah, he had the boneheaded decision. You don't expect that from a veteran, but at the end of the day, he's the backup. Gave us a chance to win. That's all you could have asked for, in my opinion, going into that game. And Barkley looked good. Barkley definitely got it going in the second half. So I think there was at least some signs of growth last week to make me believe that, this team's probably going to win 5 or 6 games this year. People that are begging for the number 1 pick that want a quarterback probably aren't going to get it. I think they'll find a way to win 4, 5, 6 games because the defense looks like it's getting better and better every week.
Yeah, no question. I'll say this, and I mentioned this when I was doing the little my little thing with Louis T. He play the Commanders, so I work with a Washington content creator yesterday. And Tyrod Taylor, I'm not going to say he was better than Daniel Jones, but different than Daniel Jones. And sometimes different is better, if that makes any sense. We did see him take more shots down the field. Tyrod Taylor hasn't had 5 years of getting his brains scrambled in that pocket behind that line either. But I thought Tyrod Taylor was very decisive in his throws. I felt like he had the defense better, and I do feel like he stretched the field. Now, Saquon Barkley also has something to do with that as well. I want to give a big shout out to Evan Neal. Evan Neal has taken a lot of crap this year. He had the bad comments. He was playing bad. I thought he was amazing on Sunday night. I thought he played really, really well. So you hope Evan Neal can build on that. I like Justin Pugh straight off the couch. That was funny. Justin Pugh may not be what he was. He was playing out of position. I mean, it's crazy how they just kind of threw him in. Hey, you're going to be his blindside protector. But I think what Justin Pugh brings is a guy that has experience. He brings leadership, and that can't be understated on a young team. The Giants are one of the youngest teams in the league, especially that line, which has had so many different lineups due to injuries or rotations or whatever it is. He's the type of guy that when that line does get healthy, when you get Thomas back, when you get JMS back, when you get a Zudu back or whoever, he could certainly help them out a lot. So I thought Evan Neal played really well. I thought the offense outside of getting into the end zone looked really good. They had 316 yards of offense. That was more than Buffalo had. And like Chris said, the defense is getting better and better every week. Outside of Miami, we did get cost 3 turnovers. Miami puts up 500 yards in everybody, so this isn't anything new. Micah McFadden has been absolutely awesome. I think he was a 5th round pick out of Indiana. And this is where the GMs make their money. Like, people are so quick to kill Joe Shane. I put it on Twitter today. He's got good talent. Micah McFadden, Deontay Banks, Wandale looks really good. Kayvon Thibodeau is good. I know he takes a lot of crap because people expect him to be Micah Parsons. He's not. Jalen Hyatt played 77% of the snaps. It's the most he's played by far this year. And again, he brings a different dynamic. It's really difficult. This is how bad the Giants have been this year. Okay. We scored 9 points, and that was the most complete game I felt that they played all season on both sides of the ball. So going against the Washington team that has allowed a ton of sacks, I think Sam Howell has been sacked the most. Maybe not the most, but he's right at the top. Yeah. This is definitely a guy that we can get to. He's turned the ball. He's thrown 6 or 7 interceptions this year. He's fumbled a couple times. If the Giants can get pressure on him early and often, this team we can beat. We've always beat Washington. So it will not surprise me if we win. But like Chris said, there's a lot to build on in this game. And that's better than a 1-win team that you watched on Sunday.
Yeah, and some subtle changes made on both sides of the ball, which I think have paid off for them. Number one, Wink is not blitzing as much as he was. He's using the 4-man rush to get at the quarterback. And then on offense, they've been using a little bit more 12 personnel, which is something, we've been calling for, with the state of that offensive line. Now, I think with Justin Pugh in there, maybe that'll settle that offensive line down to where maybe they can start going to more 11 personnel. And they've also scaled down the number of receivers. You've noticed that it's been Wandale, it's been Jalen Hyatt, and Darius Slayton. So guys like Paris Campbell, Isaiah Hodgins, Sterling Shepard kind of fallen by the wayside. So they're streamlining a little bit.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And yeah, like kind of piggybacking off what Bad Dog said also, you felt like the team finally got back to their identity. They ran the ball and they continued to run the ball. In the first half, they were only averaging like 2 or 2.5 yards a carry, but they still had like 18 or 19 carries. I think the coaching staff finally realized that we know we're a limited offense at this point with all the injuries that we have. We got to get back to doing what we did last year. We got to play grinded out football games. And that's really what I saw last week. And another thing I want to bring up, we say it every week, he needs to continue to get praise. Jamie Gillen and the special teams, once again, were very strong in this game.
Yeah. Gillen has been a bright spot because he was not very good.
Well, they went to that rugby style kicking with him, which is what he's used to doing. Yeah. And so by incorporating that, and by the way, kudos to the special teams, because with that rugby style kicking, it's very easy to take off a little bit prematurely and draw an illegal man downfield. So they've coached them up for that. But Gillen definitely with that rugby style kick, that has made a big difference for him.
Yeah. Speaking of ineligible downfield, the BS call on Evan Neal on the deep pass to Hyatt, that should have never been called.
That was on I think it was on a Zudu.
Was it on a Zudu?
Yeah, I think it was a Zudu.
Okay.
Either way.
I didn't see an illegal guy downfield. Even the announcers, when I understand. I mean, Chris and I don't listen to the broadcast, but people were saying the announcers were saying that's a bad call. We all know what happened at the end of the game.
There were a few bad calls in that game.
Yeah, we all know what happened at the end of the game. I mean, it's pretty blatantly obvious. They're just not going to call pass interference in back-to-back plays, but I mean, it's pretty blatant. I'm not going to sit here and blame the officials. We scored 9 points. That's on us. I still have an issue with some of the play call. I don't understand. Chris and I were talking about this. The Giants in the third quarter ran the ball right down the field. On 2 carries, Barkley had 53 yards. They found something running off the right side of the line, and they get down into Buffalo territory, deep into Buffalo territory, and on 3rd and inches, they run an RPO. I guess that's what it was. But I'm like, why are we even getting cute? Yeah. Hand the ball off to Barkley and run it. Or if you want to get cute on 3rd and inches, it's because you're going for it on 4th and inches. And they set up for the field goal there, which I was like, I don't understand the thought process behind the play call and then not going for it on 4th down and taking the 3. I just don't understand, especially when you found something on the right side of the line. Like Chris said, in the first half, I believe Barkley had 16 carries for 22 yards. I mean, they shut him down. But in that second half, the Giants found something until Buffalo adjusted to it. So there's just been a lot of play calling that, is head scratching in certain scenarios or situations in the game. You're like, why would they do that? Why would they call that?
I have a theory about that. I don't know if this is true, but this is my theory. You've got a lot more discussion going on this year with the play calling than maybe you've had in the past. Brian Dable is involved in the discussion, as is his right. You see him with the play call. So he's talking to Kafka upstairs in the booth, and, whoever else, whatever else offensive coaches. So I just wonder if perhaps maybe, different thinking, different philosophies, maybe too many cooks in the kitchen is a possibility. But it just seems like, the play calling is just, it's more jumbled this year. There's each play should build off of another. And we don't always see that for whatever the reason.
Yeah. You mentioned too many cooks in the kitchen. I thought we were going to segue into food early on.
You know what? Almost, because Papa Guzzo talked about how he got jambalaya tonight. So I was like, we're starting the food conversation early.
And that, going back, that was one spot where I don't like to nitpick on Dable, because overall, I think I still am very happy he's our coach. I know he's been getting more heat because the team's not playing nearly as well this year. I didn't agree with his decision after he did what he did. The way I looked at it in that situation, Patty, was it's 4th and an inch. It was literally an inch. Are you going to get a better opportunity in that game? And it turned out they did. But at that point in time, are you really going to realistically get a better opportunity in that game to score a touchdown? It's 4th and an inch on the 11-yard line. I understand you're taking the lead, but for me, Brian Dable last year goes for that. Brian Dable last year shows confidence in his team, and he goes for that. I didn't agree with that decision. I thought they should have shown more. If it was 4th and a full yard, I get it. But even if you don't get it, even if Buffalo goes down and scores a touchdown, you're still only down one possession. So for me, I thought it was the right decision there to go for it. So that was the one judgment call in that game where I strongly disagreed with Brian Dable.
Yeah, I mean, last year we talked about this with our season on the line pretty much against Washington in the second game. Dable went for it 4th and 9 from like the Washington 45 or whatever. It was near midfield. And this year it's been ultra conservative. It really is. Sometimes you watch this offense and we would sit there and joke around, go, is Dr. Garrett calling the plays again? Because it's like these little 3-yard outs, these congested throws near the line of scrimmage with a bunch of defenders around. It's just, there's no reward to that. And there's a lot of, risk taken. And I think it's shown in the fact that Daniel Jones has already thrown more interceptions this year than he did last year. Granted, 3 of those were off his receivers' hands. That happened to Eli a lot as well. So there's not much you can do about that, but it's just the offense seems just different. Again, maybe Barkley being out has something to do with this. It just doesn't seem to be, like you mentioned, Patty, the cohesive unit that it was last year.
Yeah. I mean, Barkley returning, I mean, I firmly believe, and nobody's going to convince me otherwise, that did make a difference, because now you've got a guy you've got to account for, in addition to Tyrod, who, if he has to roll out, he can move around if he needs to. And that was missing. And, and a guy like Barkley is also helping, that offensive line, if you think about it, because now there's just the threat of running, and, he can find holes. He doesn't necessarily need that offensive line to open up a hole the size of a Mack truck or anything like that. So yeah, Barkley definitely had a big impact on that game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, Barkley's huge. For everybody that says he's just a running back, you're out of your mind.
No. And that brings up a question. We might as well talk about this now, because it's coming up. The trade deadline is Halloween, October 31st. I still see people saying they should trade Barkley.
I've seen he's been getting asked about it by a lot of your counterparts in the media.
I think you wait to see this game and next week.
I've talked about this with BadDog too, Patty, and a lot of people, I think, just see the Saquon situation as one-sided. They're like, and I understand it. I clearly understand that side of it, where you have to trade him because you got to get something for him. We're in rebuild mode. He's a running back. He's not under contract next year. I'm not trading Saquon Barkley unless I get decent value. I'm not giving him away for a 3rd or 4th round pick, because the way I look at it, Patty, is if this team continues to go down the rabbit hole, if this team continues to stink this year, and we do draft a quarterback, and you take away Saquon Barkley, what the hell are you leaving that guy with to start his NFL career? So I do see value in bringing Saquon Barkley back on another tag for a young rookie quarterback. So I'm not giving the guy away for peanuts. He's too good of a football player. I'm not doing it.
To play devil's advocate with that, though, if you do draft a rookie quarterback, what are the odds that he plays a lot of the year? I know it's New York, and I know people will be pushing, but we know that Daboll and Shane don't cater to the fans. They do what they want. So say that quarterback sits for 15 games, Barkley's really not going to help him because then he'd be out of the tag and they'd have to sign him to another contract. I also wonder if Barkley would take another franchise tag. Now, he got hurt this year, so maybe he would, but he's 27 at this point. And again, he dealt with another injury a year after this when he's going to be 28. When is he going to get that big payday? I'm just more, I guess I'm more concerned about what Barkley would do if the Giants tagged him, because he wasn't happy this year, and he might just say, you know what, the hell with it. This time I am holding out. This time I'm not playing on this. His team's not good. Yeah. And especially if they got a rookie quarterback, he may say, you know what, this team's not good. This team's rebuilding. I'm getting out of the prime of my career. I want to get paid. I want to go to a winner. I want to produce, and I want to get my money and have a chance to win. So I guess I'm more concerned about Barkley's thought process as opposed to, his trade value. Because I still think you could get decent trade value, but if you let him walk, you get a compensatory pick. So you'd have to at least get more than the compensatory pick. Yeah. So I'm with you, Chris. I'm not giving him away for peanuts, but I just worry about Barkley's mindset going into 2024 if they tagged him again.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I'd be surprised if they tagged him again. But to your point about the quarterback situation, if the Giants get within sniffing distance of one of these top quarterbacks that are coming out in the draft, I could see a scenario very easily where they take one of these quarterbacks, but keep Daniel Jones just sort of like a transition quarterback. You think back to when Kurt Warner was the transition guy for Eli until Eli was ready. So maybe, I don't know, maybe you history repeats itself.
That's exactly what they would do. They'd have no choice but to do it. I mean, Daniel Jones's contract is huge.
Well, they can trade that contract and they can save.
Hypothetically, they could, but is a team going to be willing to take on that contract with the year that I think it's possible.
I mean, it's really not as bad of a contract as people make it out to be. To be honest,
I think his neck might have something to do with it, though. Too.
That too. That would probably.
I agree with you. I think if we draft a quarterback, Jones is the starter to start the year. And probably for the first 5 or 6 weeks, and you see where it goes from there, and then you make the transition. That's probably what they would do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because you think back to this team. Somebody asked me this question, and I never really got a chance to answer it, but I'll throw it out here now. Everybody's like, "How did we get this so wrong with this team?" Coming off the 9-7-1 record, a playoff berth, they won a playoff game. They looked like they were miles ahead, and now they've gone back to maybe looking the way they should have looked last year, if you think about it.
Yeah.
And I blame, in part the injuries, because this roster is not the roster that they were planning to go into the season with. That's part of it, obviously. But also there's a lack of depth at certain spots, and that has come back to bite them.
Yeah.
I mean, did they really need to sign? I'm sorry, did they really need to sign, for example, Paris Campbell, when they could have devoted that money to either an offensive lineman or an edge rusher? So just stuff like that, I think,
I think they kind of just filled some gaps with a lot of guys that they can move on from. I think that maybe they were just trying to tread water this year. I don't know if they really went out. On paper, they looked better when they got Darren Waller and Jalen Hyatt and JMS. It looked better. Bobby Okereke. It looked better on paper. But I think a lot of these one-year deals are just to kind of tread water so that the Gettleman era is kind of being ushered out. Something I talked about on Twitter. Leo's going to be gone. I don't know what's going on with McKinney. That's a guy that's very tradable, in my opinion. And I love X. He's my favorite Giant. But he's kind of seems like he's been disgruntled, probably because a lot of Thomas got paid, Jones got paid, Sexy Dexy got paid. And, he's a captain, and he's just kind of, even on Twitter, he said, like, I'm sick of feeling unappreciated, whatever it was. These guys just come out with stuff. And they put off, they're not going to talk about the contract all year with them. I don't know if that disgruntled them. It's possible that he doesn't come back. There's a lot of guys. It's possible. Slayton, although I like Darius Slayton, but they'd save $6 million if they let him go. You could put that into an offensive lineman or an edge rusher if you choose to. So I feel like maybe that was their deal, and maybe they could strike, catch lightning in a bottle 2 years in a row. It's weird the way they did it, but again, they get out of all these contracts. Then they have a good amount of cap space where they can bring their own guys in here. Like I said, as they usher the Gettleman guys out, I can't imagine Azeez Ojulari will be back and the guy can't stay healthy. So I hate that we're talking about this for Halloween next year.
Yeah.
Where we are.
But here we are. We have to, that's the topic du jour, if you will. But, I could see, I don't think Joe Shane, if they lose the next 2 games or one of the next 2 games, I don't think he goes crazy with trades. Could I see him maybe moving Leo if there's a taker? Absolutely. Because here's the other thing you got to remember. The Giants are in fairly good cap condition for next year, but they could be better. All right. Now, if you think about it, they basically re-signed all their big guns, if you will. Andrew Thomas, Dexy, Graham Gano, I believe, got a new one. Yep. Now, Barkley obviously would have to be addressed. So you add some more cap space, maybe you bring him back. Xavier McKinney, I have a feeling he's not going to be back, as much as I hate to admit it. But if you can trade one of these big contracts like a Leo or an Adoree Jackson, and I think Leo is the more likely of the two to get traded, you get cap space and you get additional draft picks, because right now the Giants only have 6 picks next year. All right. They don't have the chips, if you will, to move up and down the board. And depending on where they land in the draft order, you want to have those extra chips.
Yeah, without question. I mean, Patty, we may have talked about this last week. I don't remember because I'm getting old and there's a lot of things floating around in my brain. But this is a mirror image. I talked about 2021, but this is more 2017. The reason I say that is 2016, although the Giants were an older team and they spent a lot in free agency that year, they had a very weak schedule. They beat most of the weak teams by a touchdown or less. They played good teams. They got beat up pretty bad. They were dominated by better teams. 2017, they drafted Evan Ingram. Looked like the offense improved. You were thinking this team's going back to the playoffs, second year under Ben McAdoo. They played a tougher schedule. They got besieged by injuries. They ended up 3-13. That's kind of what's happened this year. We played a weaker schedule last year, won a lot of close games. This year, and we got dominated by Dallas and Philly and the better teams in the league. They beat us up pretty good. And this year, it's much tougher schedule. A lot of injuries to this team in general, especially on the offensive side of the football. And here we are again. We're 1-5. So it's kind of a mirror image. Like I said, the only difference is that 2016 team was older than this one. I just remember them trading Snacks Harrison for a 5th. And I could see Leo going to a place like Miami, say, a contender.
The Raiders are probably would be a team to watch.
So, I mean, it's very possible that if they get a 5th rounder for Leo and get rid of that contract, there's no reason.
And here's the other thing, people were saying, oh, well, who would take on that contract? Folks, you got to remember something. Depending on when he's traded, let's say, he gets traded week 8. So that means he is owed 9 more weeks of salary. So you're prorating the savings for both the Giants and for the acquiring team. So it's not like they're going to acquire, what is Leo, an 18 million base? Well, that's his total cap hit. But what's his base? It's like 18 million. So it's not like the acquiring team is going to have to put out 18 million to fit him in. It's going to be 18 million divided by 17 weeks. And then you multiply that per week by however many weeks are left by the time the trade is made. So that's how that works. So yeah, it is very possible that somebody may want to take on that contract. And, the Giants didn't do anything with him to lower his cap number. They're not extending him. I get the feeling they're going to move on from him anyway. So if they can get a 5th round pick, like Dog, you said, why not do it?
Yeah, the only counter argument I could make to that is you might be able to, especially if you're not going to spend next year, you'd probably get a higher comp pick for Leo. I mean, we've seen the market for interior defensive linemen. You saw what they signed this offseason. Dalvin Tomlinson got $17 million a year, 16, whatever he got. So you may just say, let Leo sign somewhere else next year. We'll get a 4th round comp pick. But
yeah, but you won't get that until the following year.
You wouldn't get it to the following. Of course, you wouldn't get it to the following year. That's the only.
But if you can get a draft pick, you can use the draft pick next year.
Yeah, if you could get a 5th round pick for Leo, you do it. I mean, I agree with you. If you get a 5th round pick for Leo, you do it. If somebody's willing to take on that contract.
Yeah. I mean, it don't rule it out because, like you said, it's not going to be the full 18 million that the team is going to have to absorb. And as far as the cap savings, it becomes a post June 1st transaction. So not that it matters because I think Leo has if I'm not mistaken, I think he's got a voidable year next year. So the money's spread out anyway. Regarding the
I think we have
cap.
like $6 million next year.
Yeah, so it kind of cancels each other out. So I could definitely I would not be surprised. I mean, that would probably be the number one guy I would think if they were looking to move somebody, he would be it. But we'll see. Maybe
I think it's Barkley, but I think the price has to be right.
Yeah, Barkley, I'd be surprised. Yeah, I would be surprised if Barkley gets moved. I really would. I'll throw out a guy, a name that, and somebody asked me about this today, and nobody's talking about this guy as a possible trade chip. So,
Darren Waller?
No. You're kind of close, and it's not Bellinger. Isaiah Hodgins. Hodgins is kind of seen his snaps roll back a little bit.
Yep.
If the Giants wanted to move one of those receivers, because Lord knows they got a whole bunch of them, and they're scaling it back, like I said before, maybe they look to move Hodgins. He's a young enough guy. He's under contract, I think for 2 years. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah.
Maybe you look to move him.
Or maybe a guy like, you think about a team like the Chiefs, who's kind of void of weapons. You look over there, a guy like Paris Campbell might play really well in that system. They made a trade with us last year for Tony. Maybe a guy like that could make sense for a team like
they do like Giants receivers. Richie James is also over there. So.
Yep.
I can see Campbell fitting in very well there. If
possible.
Maybe get a 5th round pick for him. So yeah, things like that I think are possible.
It's possible. I mean, you can't rule it out. I just feel that if they do make a trade, it's going to be one that's going to have everybody go, whoa, did not see that happen. So I'm kind of thinking outside the box here on what scenarios would prompt somebody to say, wow, I didn't see that happening.
Yeah. I think Waller would be a whoa, I didn't see, because we just got him this year, but he hasn't really been involved in the offense at all. And I think he's here. Is he on a 3-year deal? Or I think
so. I think he's got, he just redid his deal. So
it's not that much. So, no. I mean, a team like Cincinnati, say, who could use a tight end.
I don't think they trade Waller. I'd be.
I'm just saying that would be a whoa. I didn't see that one coming.
Right.
Because they didn't bring Waller in here to trade him. They brought him in here to be.
They didn't sign him to trade him.
That's right. Well, it's not Gettleman, so we, I think we're okay there.
Yeah. Let me see. Waller he signed through 2026.
Yeah.
And he has guaranteed money this year and no guaranteed money the remaining years of his contract.
I thought if I'm not mistaken, I thought they backloaded some of that money before the year
They
started.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
So, not too bad. Although, again, I don't think they look to trade him. I'd be stunned if it's Waller. But I could see Leo. I could see maybe Hodgins as a potential trade option. I don't think Barkley will be the guy that they look to move. But if somebody comes along and gives Joe Shane an offer he can't refuse, why not?
Yeah, but a team like Baltimore came along and said, listen, we'll give you a 2nd and a 5th next, in 2025. They might have to do it. Like Baltimore don't have the running back. They're using Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, and a team like Baltimore could certainly use a Barkley. He'd also be reunited with Odell Beckham for whatever that means. But Baltimore's a good fit for Saquon. The Jets don't really. They have Dalvin Cook. Breece Hall's back, but
I don't see the Giants trading anybody.
No, they wouldn't trade with the Jets anyway. But.
I don't think so. All right. A couple people have asked for injury updates and statuses and stuff like that, starting with Daniel Jones. All right. So Daniel Jones all this week limited, but did not do any team drills. He also is not cleared for contact or was not cleared for contact as of this afternoon when they practice. Folks, I would be stunned, and I mean stunned, if Jones plays on Sunday. Yeah. Dable says, oh, I have no problem with it if he comes in, even though he hasn't practiced. I'm sorry.
Some
I
weird
don't
going
see
on
it.
with those two guys. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I just don't see. So I right now, if I had to guess, I would say probably no on Daniel Jones. But a guy who I'm concerned about is Evan Neal. And I don't think, enough people mentioned this today. So Evan Neal did not practice on Wednesday. He was limited on Thursday, did not practice today. And I believe he got a questionable designation with that ankle. I'm wondering if he's going to be able to go. And we're going to have we are going to have another offensive line combination. But my goodness, these shakeups.
Yeah, that's great. But he had that ankle last week, right?
Yeah, but he practiced, I think. I think he was
Okay. Yeah,
limited.
I mean, that was his best game this year. So maybe the ankle. I don't know.
I don't know.
I thought he played well. I don't know if there's anybody else in the chat. So we know about that. What about John Michael Schmitz? Like, what is the deal with the shoulder?
I saw John Michael the other day in the locker room. Didn't have a wrap on, didn't have anything on his shoulder. He looked like he was moving it okay. So I really don't know what the deal is. Is it, it could be a stinger. Maybe it's a sting. I don't know. But he didn't have any wrap. Or, usually guys that have injuries, they walk around with a wrap on their whatever part of their body is affected, or they limp or whatever. John Michael was moving, fine. He was reaching for stuff in his locker and moving his arms around. And I was like, So I really don't know. I'm mystified about that one, to be honest with you.
Weird.
So let's see. Somebody also asked about Andrew Thomas. Supposedly the Jet game was the week that they were going to hope to ramp him up for. I don't know, man. I've heard his injury is pretty bad, and he had that setback when he tried to practice a few weeks ago. So they basically went back to square one. I mean, I wonder if we see Andrew Thomas until like after the bye, which at that point we're almost done with this season. But hopefully Andrew gets back because they miss him.
Could he be an IR designation? Short-term IR?
He could be, but at this point, I don't think they're going to do that. Okay. If they were going to do it, they should have done it weeks ago.
Well, we know this team hasn't done what they should have been doing all year. So who knows?
Yeah. And I know somebody's asking about Jay Walnuts is asking about Aaron Robinson, kind of the forgotten guy. Last I checked with Aaron Robinson, he had no idea what they were thinking. He told me he was feeling better. He was feeling good. He was moving around. But you know what? Do they really need him at this point is the question. You can't just bring a guy back unless you have a roster spot for him. And right now, to me, I would think the priority is making sure they've got what they need on the offensive line. So maybe bringing Aaron Robinson back, they can afford to wait if they need to.
I don't even know what worth Aaron Robinson brings at this point. He played? I swear he hasn't played a snap in a real NFL game. Doesn't seem like it anyway. It's been forever.
Yeah. He's barely played at all as a Giant. He's a guy I was really looking forward to last year and just hasn't been there. He hasn't shown up for this team.
I don't know what's happened. I mean, he was so positive. I remember the start of last year, he was so excited and and then he had the appendicitis, and then the knee issue popped up, and it was like, goodness, this kid is snake bit.
Yeah.
So that was very very unfortunate for him, but he is still on PUP. He's eligible to come off PUP, but right now, like I said, do you really need him at this point? If you get a rash of injuries, or maybe you trade a cornerback, which I doubt, I'm not so sure they would do, then maybe you talk about it. But, do they really need him at this point? Let him heal up, completely.
I'm with you. I'd like to see Cordell Flott continue to get more exposure. Deonte Banks. There's no need for Aaron Robinson.
Like Trey Hawkins.
Trey Hawkins, absolutely. All right. Papa Guzzo asked if we trade Aziz. Papa Guzzo, who's going to take him? My goodness. Guy's always injured. But we'll indulge you anyway. Can Isaiah be a good edge rusher? It's interesting. They haven't used Isaiah Simmons much in that role. After supposedly saying that that's what they were going to do. And I don't understand why.
Yeah.
I really don't understand why. It's like you see Isaiah Simmons make a splash play here or there, but not what you thought you were getting. And I'm not really sure what they're doing there with him.
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. I think Micah McFadden has taken the role that a lot of people maybe thought, at least that I thought Simmons would be used as a blitzer up the middle a lot, but Micah McFadden's played well, so maybe that has something to do with it.
That could be.
They have not used Simmons off the edge at all. He's gotten a lot of snaps, but like you said, they haven't really used him as a guy, going after the passer.
Yeah, I wish they would. I just wish they would just let him and Kayvon just go after the quarterback.
Yeah.
Because that's their strengths, especially on third down. I hate seeing Kayvon Thibodeau drop back into coverage on third down. That drives me crazy. Let him go after. That's what we got him for.
Let him hunt.
Let him go. Let him go.
Yeah.
3rd and 8. Let him go after the quarterback. Let him get, because he's going to get there. Let him just go. Like LT, go get the quarterback. LT could do whatever he wanted to do. He was Lawrence Taylor, but we told LT go get the quarterback. He got the quarterback. And even when Parcells didn't tell him to get the quarterback, I think that was back in 1981 or 82. And, Parcells says, we don't even have what you're doing. And Taylor says, well, you better put it in then because it's good. So,
Yeah, he was special. He was definitely special, LT.
Yeah.
But to your point, yeah, I wonder if Micah McFadden's emergence kind of, curtailed what they might have been planning to do with Isaiah Simmons. And, another guy who's been sort of invisible and it's kind of been disappointing is Boogie Basham.
Yeah. Haven't said anything at all. Yeah.
What are they doing with these guys? Did they maybe, I don't know, did they maybe stock up thinking that, just in case? I mean, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, it's funny, Patty, because last year we raved about how this team had a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. They were well prepared for every situation. And like you mentioned, it's like they just brought in a bunch of guys and they, like you said, one play builds off another. And it's just kind of like we just have a jumbled mess. This isn't a team. It's a group of individuals. And you don't play well as a group of individuals. You have to be on the same page. Injuries play a part in that, obviously. But yeah, bringing in all these pieces, and it seems like they didn't really have a set plan for any of them. It's just kind of like they brought them in here and like, okay, we'll figure it out when they get here, which wasn't the way this team coached and prepared last year. So it's very strange the way it's gone.
Yeah, for sure. I want to answer this question from Danny Boy. Do you think offensive and defensive coordinators get let go after this year? I don't think so, but I would not be stunned if maybe Kafka goes to Northwestern and takes that job. I mean,
I don't think Wink's gone at all.
I don't think so either.
I think the defense is starting to play better. I think Wink keeps his job. I don't think he's a guy that's going to warrant a head coaching position, especially this year with the way that the team has played. And I think the defense is starting to get better. So I definitely think Wink's going to be back next year. Kafka's interesting. I could see. I don't think they'll fire Kafka. Hey, you never know though. Yeah, Kafka's interesting. I think the guys that are going to be replaced though are the position coaches. I don't think they're going to go with the coordinators. I think it's going to be the offensive line coach. I think he's gone. I think the special teams. You think
so? Because he's buddies with he and Dable are kind of tight. You really?
I know he is, but Patty, and who knows how this season's going to turn out? Maybe the Giants finish strong and maybe they win 7 games, and we say, all right, let's build off of this.
Like the Lions did last year.
Yeah, like the Lions did last year. We got a lot of injuries at the beginning of the year. We played a really tough schedule, so maybe that's the way that the year ends. But if this year continues going down the path that it's gone, the fans are going to need blood. Somebody's going to have to be fired.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. And the first guy that the fans are going to be pointed to, if you're not firing the coordinators, is the offensive line coach. The offensive line has been in shambles. I mean, it's been so bad. So I think Bobby Johnson's probably going to be fired. I know he's got a connection to Dable, but I think he's the guy that falls on the sword.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why I wouldn't be surprised if Kafka takes the Northwestern job, besides the fact that he's from Northwestern, going back to what I said earlier about how I suspect there's too many cooks in the kitchen now with the play calling, whereas last year that wasn't necessarily the case. So you just kind of wonder if, that might factor into the equation. Plus, he hasn't been lately, but I noticed Kafka has been a little bit more active on social media, at least throughout the summer and the beginning of the season. Usually that's a tactic a coach an assistant coach uses if he wants to increase his visibility and, oh, hey, I'm out here if you want to hire me. So just little subtle things like that have me thinking that might happen.
If he did move on, would Dable just call the plays? Would they
You know
have
what? That's an interesting point. And I think he should. And here's why. And I know this is going to surprise a lot of people because I've always been, okay, look, don't have the head coach call the plays because have him be a CEO. But here's the thing. Wink is an experienced defensive coordinator. He can handle running that defense by himself. He does not need Dable to oversee him. Matter of fact, I don't think Dable oversees him at all. He just, he'll listen in, but basically Wink runs that defense as he sees fit. All right. Assuming T-Mac comes back, that's, they can talk about that stuff. But T-Mac is experienced enough. All right. And I know some of you want to see T-Mac gone. We'll see if he's back or not.
We could bring Joe Judge back as a special team.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be something? But Dable now, if you have Dable calling the plays, I think in this instance it could work. I really do. I mean,
well, I think that was the inevitable that was going to happen at some point. That's why I wanted Dable in the first place, because you have that to fall back on if you lose your offensive coordinator, whether it be to him doing a poor job or whether it be him getting another job. So yeah, I think it's inevitable. Once we lose Kafka, I think Dable's going to be the play caller. I really do. I think for nothing else, familiarity with whoever the quarterback is. So yeah, I'm with you. I think it will be Dable if Kafka moves on.
And Shea Tierney will probably get promoted to offensive coordinator, but it'll be like a few years ago when who was it that was out here?
Shermer and what's his name?
Mike something.
Yeah.
Shula. Yes.
Yeah.
Shula was the offensive coordinator, but not the play caller. So I could see an arrangement like that if Kafka does leave to take, a coaching job. So
yeah. No, somebody's fries are done.
I was gonna say
fries are done.
I was gonna say
not mine.
Did an angel get his wings or something?
Maybe.
All right. Fabian says, what credentials does Dable have? Fabian, he's been an offensive coordinator. Hello. I mean, come on, man. He was the OC for Alabama. He was the OC for the Bills. I mean, that's not good enough for you?
Right.
So,
what credentials do any head coaches have? What credentials did Joe Judge have coming here? Just being a special teams coordinator. Normally, that's you rise up the ranks. You're a quarterback coach, and then maybe you become the offense coordinator, then you become the head coach. Or I think Parcells was the linebackers coach. I don't know if Parcells ever became the defense coordinator. I just remember he was the linebackers coach. Then I think he became the head coach. I don't remember he was.
I'm pretty sure
Belichick was the defense.
I'll look it up, but I'm pretty sure he was the defensive coordinator.
Okay,
I'll look it up.
But I know Belichick was like a special teams guy in the 70s with Indianapolis, and then he became. I remember he was a linebackers coach, became the defensive coordinator, and then became the best head coach ever. One of them.
He was, dog. I was right. 1981 to 82, he was DC and linebackers coach.
Okay, so he was both.
Yes.
Both.
And now that I think about it, I remember George Martin talking about how they didn't want to share. Not George Martin. I'm sorry, Harry Carson talking about how they didn't want to share him with the rest of the defense.
Yeah.
So
he was good, man. Parcells was the man.
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys, let's take our first commercial break here. So when we come back, we'll continue talking about the Giants. They've got hopefully a quote unquote get right game this weekend. And then, of course, we will get some of your questions in as we go along here on Locked On Giants Live. Please don't go anywhere. Hey, Giant fans, you never know when an unexpected illness is going to strike. You could be on vacation in another country or tucked miles away from civilization at a quiet island retreat. Well, now you don't need to be caught unprepared when you have Jase Medical's Jase Case. The Jase Case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your Jase Case by adding other medications based on your needs. To get your Jase Case, head to jasemedical.com to complete a medical intake form. And if warranted, one of their board-certified physicians will reach out to further discuss your specific needs. Once you're approved, Jase will handle everything from issuing the prescriptions to having the medication shipped straight to your door. And right now, you can save $20 off your Jase case with the promo code Locked On. Visit jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com to get started. And don't forget that promo code Locked On to save $20 off your Jase case. Hey, Giant fans, snap into NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. The New York Giants are a 2.5-point underdog this weekend at home, but historically, the Giants have found a way to top their longtime division rival, Washington Commanders, which would mean if they do so again this weekend, they'll beat the spread. So this is just one of the many types of bets you can place with FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more, no matter what the sport. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get started. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, everybody, welcome back to Locked On Giants Live. You got Traina, Tana, and Dog, and we're doing what we do best. We're talking Giants. And guys,
I was we were talking about them like we were last year at this point. We were 5-1.
I know.
Beautiful thing.
Reverse. Hopefully, we finished 5-1 like last year.
Hopefully, yeah, exactly. And guys, let's talk about this weekend's game. Washington, it's a team that the Giants historically have handled, in recent years. How are you feeling about this game?
I think we're going to win. I know that might sound crazy to a lot of people because we're 1-5. And hey, I thought we were going to win many weeks this year, and we didn't. So we might get destroyed. But I look at this game, Patty. I say this defense is starting to play a lot better. We talked about earlier, Sam Howell. He's a turnover-prone quarterback. Washington has let up a lot of sacks. Wink's a guy that I think, especially for an inexperienced quarterback, could cause a lot of fits with the type of defense that he runs, especially with their lack of ability to protect for him. I think we're going to create some turnovers in this game, and I think the Giants are going to win, provided that we don't turn the ball over ourselves. Like if Tyrod's the quarterback this week, which I think he's going to be, he's got to play like he did last week. I don't even need big plays. Just don't turn the ball over. Manage the game and let the defense win the game. So if they do that, I think they'll win. I think they're going to create some turnovers against Howell.
I also think the Giants are going to win, and I put that out on Twitter at the beginning of the week. I said, call me crazy. I feel like we're winning on Sunday. Heavy dose of 26. Heavy dose of 26. I mean, Saquon Barkley, historically in his career, has done extremely well against Washington, as does Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones obviously not going to play. Daniel Jones really should be undefeated against Washington. We all know that the only reason he lost the game was because Dexter Lawrence jumped off sides, which he wasn't off sides, and they got a chance to make the game-winning field goal after they'd missed it. So he really should be 6-0. Not to mention he had a touchdown call back in that game for 33 yards. That was an invisible holding, and Darius Slayton dropped the touchdown. I mean, I remember Daniel Jones killed them in that game in 2021, and we ended up losing, and that's how you know you're a bad team. Just bad things happen to you. But I just feel like the offense was more balanced. I feel like Tyrod Taylor having, it's just different. When I talked to Louie about this, he was like, you guys don't have film on Sam Howell. And Sam Howell played really well against the Eagles, and it's true. But how much tape does anybody have on Tyrod Taylor? You have tape on Tyrod Taylor from back in his days of Buffalo and Cleveland, but you don't really have any tape with him with the Giants. So how do you really prepare for Tyrod Taylor? Because, again, we saw those deep shots that Darius Slayton was much more involved. We saw Jalen Hyatt getting, throw some passes down the field. We saw Darren Waller get involved. You saw a lot of different receivers get involved. And, again, it was you saw Saquon Barkley run the ball effectively. So I think the offense can do enough. Like Chris said, if we don't turn it over. But like Chris said as well, the defense has to win this game. It is by far our best unit. It has played really, really well. They played extremely well against Seattle. I know they gave up 24 points. Well, they gave up 17, but one started at the 7-yard line and one was a pick six. So really they gave up 14. They got pressure on Geno Smith. They shut down one of the best offenses in the league last week. Deontay Banks has been the best against elite receivers. He's going to get a chance with Terry McLaurin this week. But if we can hold them up a little bit and Sam Howell doesn't get the ball off immediately, there's definitely turnovers to be had here. He turned the ball over 5 times against Buffalo. So it is very possible Wink Martindale's ability to, scheme blitzes, or if the Giants front four can get there, we definitely got a chance to win this game. And I just always feel confident against Washington. It's no knock on Washington. You said recently, historically, no team has owned a team like the Giants have owned Washington, beat them 105 or 106 times. No team's beat another team more than that. So I always feel good against Washington. We'll see what happens.
I mean, I feel good about it too. And it's funny because I said way back, after the Giants kept proving me wrong, I said I would not pick the Giants unless I had a reason to believe that they could win the game. I got to be honest with you. What I saw against Buffalo gave me a little bit of hope that they could get it done. I mean, I did not like 0 for 5 in the red zone. I did not like 0 for 3 on goal to go. No. I mean, there's just no excuse for that.
I'm going to dampen our hopes just a little bit and bring us back to reality. One major thing that I don't think we've talked about in that game quite yet, the Buffalo game, that I think was a major factor that I talked about before the year started. Brian Daboll's knowledge of Josh Allen, I think, was a major factor in that game. And I think it had a lot to do with how well the defense played. Don't think for a second that he didn't tell Wink Martindale how to game plan against that offense. Nobody knows that offense better than him. So I'm like trying to channel myself and say, don't get too over enthusiastic about the defense. Let's see if they could keep this up against teams they're not as familiar with as Buffalo. But of course, a really good performance. And I do think they'll play good this week against Washington.
Yeah, that's
and it's kind of like last year when we played Baltimore. We knew Wink knew how to defend Lamar Jackson better than anybody. And in the second half, they really did. They shut him down. So again, Sam Howell's a rookie. He's been up and down. That happens to rookies. He has really good games. He has mistake. He makes mistakes. We have to force him into mistakes. When you have a struggling offense, you really do need to not just force turnovers, but sometimes you might even have to score on defense. So you might have to really put us in position to score where we take over. Like, Thibodeau did last year when we played Washington, where he had the strip sack, fumble touchdown, or you get the ball inside the 10-yard line on a turnover. You don't got to go very far. So it's definitely a game I can see us getting more turnovers and forcing some interceptions and some bad throws and getting to Sam Howell. So if we don't, though, one thing I mentioned that I really do like about Sam Howell, and I saw this when they played the Eagles, he's not afraid to stand in there and take a hit while delivering a pass. So he's not gun shy. Like, he doesn't just, fade away or run out of the pocket. He's not premature, which is why he's getting sacked a lot. He doesn't really run out of the pocket prematurely, but he can scramble, which is something they have to be aware of too. He can run a little bit. So again, normally I'm extremely confident against Washington. I'm not confident. I just feel like we're going to win. I wouldn't say I'm confident that we're going to win, but I feel like we're going to.
I'm going to pick the Giants to win. And, I just, there's something about playing this
spread.
team.
I'm going to say Washington.
The spread's 2.5, I think, right?
What is it?
That's what you said, 2.5.
Yeah, I think the Giants,
are they favored or are they underdogs?
Underdogs.
Washington's favorite. Okay. I was going to say Washington's favored by 3. That was going to be my guess.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a close scoring game, but I think the Giants pull this one out. I saw enough last week that got me encouraged. Now, obviously, there's still concerns. Another offensive line combination. The red zone problems continue on offense. Got to start scoring, but the defense gave me, and it could be like Chris said. It could be, Daboll knew how to, all of Josh Allen's weaknesses and whatnot. Maybe that's it. But also take that as a confidence builder for this defense, because when I talk to guys, I talked to Okereke this week. I talked to Adoree Jackson, and we were talking about, the confidence builder. And they said a game like that absolutely does build confidence. He says sometimes all you need is that little push to say, hey, we are good. We are as good as we think we can be, and we can be even better. So you don't underestimate that.
Yeah, we'll see. And I mean, if we're being fair, the teams we've lost to this year have been really good teams. The Cowboys, the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Bills. We've lost to the upper echelon teams. Now we're playing a team that's more in our weight class. So I think we stand a good chance to win this game. I really do.
Yeah, don't forget Miami, who Miami, Miami, in my opinion,
was in the league, BadDog. 5 of the top 8 teams in the league, arguably, we played.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. All right, Jordan Samiti asks if Pugh moves back to left guard, who plays left tackle, and if Evan Neal can't play, who plays right. Jordan, I think Pugh is going to play left tackle. That would be my guess. left guard. I'm trying. I was asked that question earlier today, and I could not. That name escaped me, and it still is. If Evan Neal can't play, I'm wondering if it's going to be Tyree Phillips, because Tyree Phillips played right tackle for the Giants last year when Evan Neal was down. But left guard, I mean, would they plug McKethan in there, you think? Or not McKethan, Glowinski, who has played there, and put maybe McKethan at right guard? Or do you add in, one of these guys that they signed, Miles? Although I doubt they would do that, because Miles, just got back here and doesn't know the playbook maybe as well as Tyree Phillips, who was here over the summer. So, I mean, what do you guys think for the offensive line if you had to map it out from left to right?
Pray. Pray. I mean,
besides that,
yeah, I mean, my God, who's even healthy? I mean, my God,
Pugh's healthy, Bredesen's healthy, Pugh,
yeah,
Bredesen, McKethan, this guy Miles that they added, Tyree Phillips is healthy. I got to look at the list of who's who on the roster. I'm drawing a blank.
Whoever's healthy is going to play, because everybody else is hurt. So
Right.
it's just a matter of where they play. I mean, they're all hurt, especially if Evan Neal doesn't play too.
Yeah.
That would be a kick in the teeth, wouldn't it?
If Tyree Phillips plays really well, should we send all the linemen to Philadelphia for 6 weeks to figure it out? Like a boot camp type of thing?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Sean Harlow's a guy who I think can play center guard if they need him to. Joshua Miles, I don't think they would have him play since he just got here. So I don't know if he would be ready, but yeah, they're kind of thin at tackle. If you think, looking at it, Tyree Phillips can play tackle if they need him to. So can Justin Pugh. Joshua Miles is listed as a tackle, and then Evan Neal, we don't know if he's questionable right now. Matt Parrott has been declared out. Andrew Thomas has been declared out. Marcus McKethan, I think he played guard in college, right? He didn't play tackle.
No.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I think you put Pugh back at the tackle, even though it's not where I want him. It's not as I want him at the guard when people are healthy. But if we're as banged up as we are, I think Pugh showed you enough last week where, even though I do think fans are overhyping him a little bit,
yeah,
because he did. I mean, it was miraculous that he didn't look embarrassing out there coming off the couch. But I think people need to
straight
calm
off
down
the couch.
Yeah, but I don't expect Pugh to be this great lineman for this team. But it was an encouraging performance. But I think you play him at the left tackle, probably, as crazy as that sounds, for a second straight week.
Not crazy.
All the injuries we got.
Not crazy at all. And for those of you interested, over on GiantsCountry.com, Coach Gene Clemens did a film breakdown of Pugh snaps at guard and tackle, where the strengths were, where the weaknesses are. So if you want to check that article out, it's on GiantsCountry.com by Coach Gene Clemens, who does the film work for us over there. So, I mean, yeah, Pugh has been practicing, I think, at both spots, to be honest with you. He hasn't played tackle, prior to last week, that is. He hadn't played tackle since, I think, 2015, if I'm not mistaken. And he's more of a guard, obviously. But you know what? Look, they can probably do things if they need to help him out, I would think.
No, I'm sure they will. You're going to see a ton of 12 personnel. And we got to do exactly what we did last week. Like, we got to run the hell out of football. I don't care if we have 18 carries for 22 yards or whatever we had last week. Same exact game plan. Boring, slow down the game. We can't pass protect with this offensive line consistently. So they got to do what they did last week. They got to try to run the ball. Yeah.
All right. James Vegas asked about Lael Collins. James, just a guess here, but they worked him out, obviously, as you know. Maybe Lael Collins isn't ready yet from his injury, and they figured, okay, you know what? We'll put you on our short list if we have, something that pops up. That could be why they didn't sign him, because think about it. They went and they brought back Phillips. They went and they brought in Josh Miles. They added Pugh to the 53-man roster. What does that tell you about Lael Collins? Either he had a bad workout or he's not fully healthy enough to where he can give them quality snaps. So that's probably why Lael Collins also didn't sign with the Jets, from what I understand. I think the Jets were interested.
I was just about to bring that up. The Jets brought him in, I think, the day before, the day after. He didn't sign with them either. So there's clearly something there that they didn't like.
Yeah. I mean, he might not be healthy yet.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's see. We've got a question here from Freedom 516. Why don't we use Gray more with the run game? it's Saquon and Breida. I mean, Gray is pass protection is a key with these younger running backs. I mean, so that could be part of the reason why. And that right now they're trying to find a role for him. As a return specialist. I'm not particularly impressed by him as a punt returner, but they're trying to get him snaps to keep him keep his head in the game, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to get a more expanded role, obviously, once Saquon's not here, which we'll see how soon that's going to be. Is it going to be midseason this year? Is it going to be next year? Is it going to be the year after? But I think that's when you'll see Gray start to get a more expanded role. Before then, next year maybe becomes the backup if Saquon stays, and maybe Breida probably won't be back. But at this point, I don't expect Gray unless we trade Barkley to get much more of a role than he's gotten.
Yeah. I mean, his time will come. It will definitely come. But right now, as long as Saquon, who, by the way, Saquon did not get an injury designation, so he's off the injury report. So it's going to be Saquon for sure. All right. Abel Island, will Shep get a chance to play? Probably not a whole lot of snaps if he does. I mean, you look at what the Giants have done at the receiver. So their primary guys have been Slayton, Hyatt, and Robinson. And if you kind of think about it, you can kind of mix and swap guys out. So for example, Hyatt is one of your outside guys, so maybe he's like Hodgins, for example, or Wan'Dale Robinson's your slot guy, so maybe he's a Paris Campbell. So I don't think I would be surprised if we see a lot of Shep, which is a shame because I know he wants to play. I always check in on him when I go into the locker room. We always, spend a few minutes talking, but he's also, willing to do whatever it takes for the team. So if it means he's got to sit on the bench and coach guys up, that's what he's doing. So,
I don't see Shepard having a big role. I think they kind of brought him back just because I think part of it was for leadership and locker room presence. I don't think they ever really thought he was going to be a big part of the offense. And that's, they brought Hodgins back. They brought Slayton back. They brought in Paris Campbell. They brought in Darren Waller. So he kind of fell by the wayside because we have a lot of receivers like Shep. And unfortunately for him, he's getting older. We all are. But he has dealt with a multitude of injuries in his career. And I feel like they brought Paris Campbell in to kind of take that spot until Wan'Dale got healthy. And there's just not a lot of snaps for slot wide receivers because we have so many of them. I love Shepard. I mean, I'm a Sooner fan.
I love him
when they got him. It stinks that his career is going the way it has, but I do think he was brought in here more as a leader, and like I said, more of a coach, lead by example type of guy. But it just hasn't worked out for him as far as playing.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, but like I said, he's not going to complain. He's not going to go to Joe Shane and say, I want to be released. Cole Beasley did that today, apparently decided that, there's no path for me to be on this roster. So I want off. All right. So sometimes some guys don't want that. Some guys don't mind it. It kind of depends, to be honest with you. So, all right. Scott Young asked about Tommy DeVito, if he's the backup. I've got a thought about the quarterback situation, but first to answer your question, Scott, they did not sign any quarterbacks, which you can probably view as a positive that Jones is headed in the right direction. But I have a thought about DeVito because I saw a lot of people, a lot of my colleagues on Twitter said, oh, we'll know what's going on with Jones depending on what the Giants do with DeVito on Saturday. You know what, guys? I wouldn't be shocked if they bring DeVito up regardless. And here's why I say that. Because if Jones is cleared to play on Sunday, and I think that's a big if, you want to have an emergency quarterback just in case he takes that wrong hit and he gets knocked out of the game. I think if you're the Giants, you play it safe. They have what they need on the offensive line. So it's not like, I don't think they'll bring up any offensive linemen off the practice squad. You could make an argument. Maybe they bring up O'Shane Zimenez to help on outside linebacker, but I would not be surprised if Tommy DeVito is brought up from the practice squad, regardless of what happens with Jones.
Yeah, I wouldn't play Jones this week unless he's 100%, which it clearly does not appear he's going to be. I think we showed, especially with this banged up offensive line, You're gonna put a less than 100% Daniel Jones back behind that line. No, for me, I come out with a similar game approach as we did last week. Tyrod Taylor showed he's more than capable of keeping us in the game, which is what you want from your backup quarterback. That's what I go to war with this week. I don't rush Daniel Jones back.
Yeah.
I don't see the point in it.
Yeah, there is no point. We're 1-5.
Yeah.
We're not at this point. We're not battling for anything except for a top draft pick. And again, this is a neck. This is not a groin. This is not a hammy. It's not a calf. I mean, it's his neck. If he's not cleared for contact, the man has been taking contact all year, which is why he's in the predicament he's in. So there's no way you can put him back there in this situation. You have to at least sit him out one more week until they say he's cleared for contact at the beginning of the week. I wouldn't be like, Saturday, you're cleared for contact. Hell no, that's not enough time for him to get right. And the fact that Daniel Jones has said, this is not the same neck injury. It's a different neck injury. So he's got
one
two
that he
neck
couldn't
injuries.
practice with.
What's that?
One that he couldn't practice with last week after
Right.
having it.
You don't mess with the guy's neck.
No.
So, just he can sit another week. It's what do we have to lose?
Yeah.
Another game? We've been doing that all year. So what's the difference if he sits or not,
Yeah, as somebody who's been dealing with a neck injury, you don't screw around with those. They can be.
And you're not getting hit by.
And I'm not getting hit exactly.
Right.
Exactly, but they linger. You get a pinched nerve in your neck, they linger.
Yeah.
That's what I get for doing.
Mike says down there.
I did pro form at the gym, dog. I should have checked with you on my form. I would have never had this injury.
Listen, like Mike says in the thing, my favorite group there, one of my Wu-Tang Clan, protect your neck. That's right.
There you go. Protect your neck. I like it. All right. This is an interesting question. SETI 079. Do you think Dexter Lawrence would help the run on the goal line as a fullback in certain situations?
That's not a horrible suggestion.
I don't think it's a bad situation.
No, it's not.
Listen, we saw during the fight, we saw how good Leonard and Dexter could block, and I was like, "Can we get them on the O line?" They were knocking people all over the place like like bowling pins. I was like, that was awesome.
I was watching that. It actually turned out to be a pretty good game last night. It started out really bad. I was watching that game saying to myself, "Wow, imagine if we had Taysom Hill on this team, how much easier it would make it in the red zone." To have a guy that could run hard between the tackles, it wouldn't hurt to have. That's thinking outside the box, but to have a big batty running back, we've been calling that for years to get a guy that could pick up that hard short yardage for this team.
And this team really doesn't have a fullback. I mean, the closest they have is Bellinger.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I'd like to see it. Why not? I guess maybe what holds them back is Dexter plays a lot of snaps on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what holds them back. I don't know. All right. Fabian asked if Daniel Jones's injury was whiplash. Fabian, they never came out and said what it was, but if you look at the replay, it sure did look like his head jerked back and then forward like whiplash. So it's possible. It's possible that that's what it is, but they never confirmed or deny it. Somebody asked me, why are the coaches so, secretive about injuries? And I think there's a balance they're trying to strike here. It's like they have to declare if a guy is not at 100%, it's the league rules. But I think what Dable's maybe trying to do is not spill the details because it's a privacy type of thing. So, I mean, that's just a guess on my part. But trust me, we've asked Daniel, we've asked Dable, we've asked Kafka, we've asked, anybody who might be in the know what's with Daniel's neck. And they're just not talking.
Yeah, it's funny when he had the neck injury the last time, they didn't really ever say what it was, but it kept him out all year. I don't think they ever came out and said this was the injury.
Right.
They just said they're going to reevaluate him in August. That's what I remember. Before the 2022 season. So we never figured it out then. What I read, and again, you take it with a grain of salt, or maybe this was on the Up and Adams. So I forget, but he supposedly had a pain in the left part of his neck and it went into his shoulder.
Which could be a nerve. It could
I was
be
going to say, that sounds like a nerve to me. I'm not a doctor by any stretch of the imagination, but that does sound like nerve.
Right.
Problem.
I mean, that's what I don't know what his injury is, obviously, but for me, I can speak for myself. I have a pinched nerve that shows up in my neck every once in a while. that goes right down my shoulder, sometimes right down to my thumb. So, and sometimes I can feel it in my lower back. So it's all connected. And, I've been getting treatment for my injury, which, I've had now for a few months. So trying to avoid the MRI stuff, but I don't think I'm going to be able to outrun that much longer. So I may have to start drinking heavily if I have to go have an MRI.
Well, if this season hasn't had you started doing that, maybe the MRI. Well, I don't know.
You know what? There's this wine that I want to get. There's a vineyard here in Jersey, and I want to go to this vineyard to pick up a bottle of this wine. And my husband's like, "No, we can't go." I said, "Why not?" He says, "Because you'll take that bottle and you'll polish it off. Because it's that good of a wine." And I'm not a big wine drinker, but this wine is really good. And last time I bought the bottle, I ended up having to share it with him. I said, "Can't we go back to, on Saturday? It's a day off. Let me go and get this wine." He's like, "Nope."
Yeah, I mean, if we lose to Washington, we probably should polish it off at this point.
If anybody wants to know, no, I'm just kidding. I'm like, because people were like, "What do you want for Christmas?" I'm like, "Just give me a bottle of this wine because it's just so good." But okay, let's see. Okay. Amazing Guy says, would the Giants take Marvin Harrison or would they be picking too high not to take a quarterback? Amazing Guy, we don't know just yet to say, what direction they might go. I think we need to wait and see.
We have no idea what pick we're going to have.
Yeah, I would say let's wait and see until we get to the end of the season or towards the end of the season. We'll have a better idea maybe what range they're picking in, and then we can say, okay, maybe it makes sense to do this or that or the other things. So
I still don't think we're going to take a quarterback because I don't think we're going to be picking high enough. But if we are picking, we will be taking one.
Yeah.
We will not be taking Marvin Harrison second or third overall. I promise you that. If we're picking second or third overall, we'll be taking a quarterback.
Yeah. Mike asks if Daniel Jones gets paid to do the Up and Adams podcast. I would guess yes, but I don't know that for a fact. I mean, usually when a player has a weekly spot,
he definitely does.
Yeah, I would say usually when a player has a weekly spot like that, it's usually a paid appearance.
Yeah.
So, but what's interesting to me is when they do the production meetings before a game. That's when the good stuff really comes out, as we found out last week during the Sunday night broadcast.
Yeah.
Because everything, they got to be straight with everybody. So no questions off limits and really, no answer is held back from what I understand in those production meetings.
Daniel probably definitely regrets doing that now, though, before the year started. Before the year started, of course, he was a hot commodity, signs the contract, Giants. Now his team's been so bad, he's been hurt. He's probably dreading going on that show every week.
Yeah, fan base is killing him. The media is killing him. Yep.
But yeah, I know he absolutely gets paid for that. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Fabian asked, do we think it's a distraction? I'm assuming you mean Daniel's appearance on the Up and Adams. No, I don't think it's a distraction. I don't. He's doing it on his day off.
Yeah.
How is that a distraction?
No, it's not.
I don't think he looks totally comfortable doing it at times, but that's just Daniel.
Yeah, I think that's just the way he looks all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see him getting interviewed after the game or whatever. He doesn't.
Yeah.
It's just Daniel.
By the way, did you guys, I think it was El Jefe. Did you see El Jeffe's
Yes.
video? Oh my
God. The funniest thing about that is
I missed it. What happened?
They dub over like a
yeah.
So I'm just laughing. Goodness. I'm laughing at the people that think it's real. Like that makes me laugh. And then he plays it off like, oh my God, can you believe the nerves?
Yeah. You know how many people contacted me and said, "Is this real?" And I'm like, "No, guys, I was standing in that huddle. I can tell you for a fact that that's not real."
You can tell just by the way the voice sounds. That's dubbed over.
Absolutely.
It's so clear.
It reminded me of that bad lip reading thing, how they sync everything up just with the facial expressions and everything like that.
That was funny though.
El Jeffy, he's the one that does Damn It, Daniel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So some of those are kind of funny, I think. But
yeah, he's great. Yeah, he's
creative is what they are. All right, let me see what we've got. Let's see. I just saw a question. Hold on. Where did I see it? if they were picking high and Williams isn't there, Scott Young likes Penix Jr. You know what? I tend to. It's early, and I haven't done a whole lot with the draft, but I'm hearing more good things about Penix than Williams. I don't know if that's just. And
Well,
again, I haven't done any film study, but
he had a great game recently, so that's probably why. I still think Caleb Williams will definitely be regarded as the number one prospect coming out. But
Michael Penix,
yeah,
this year, because I mean, there's still ways to go. I think he's the favorite to win the Heisman. He has been unbelievable, and I keep talking about. You guys want to watch quarterbacks play November 4th? It's USC versus Washington. It's Penix versus Caleb. You want to circle that one? I know I'm not going anywhere during that game because those are my two favorite quarterbacks in collegiate football. But you can ask Chris. I've been talking about Michael Penix for a couple of years. I love Michael Penix. The problem with him is he's had some serious injuries. He's torn his ACL twice. He had a shoulder injury. It's why he transferred from Indiana. But he looks so good. It's just like a flick of the wrist. He's a lefty. He's almost like Tua with a stronger arm. Like he's really good. He's having a really good year. He's been more consistent than Caleb, and he's quiet. Like Caleb Williams has a kind of he knows how good he is. He ain't afraid to tell you how good he is. He kind of has that attitude, where Penix is kind of more docile and not as outspoken. And God, who the hell did they play? It was Oregon. It was a great game between Oregon and Washington. He came back and won because Dan Lannon coaches like it's Madden, going forward on like 4th and 3 from the 50 when they should have punted. Washington had no timeouts and a minute to go. They gave Penix the ball, 2 passes, bing, bing, touchdown. But he was crying at the end of the game, like just thinking about how far he came. Washington has a chance to win the national championship. Like they're that good. He's really, really good. I really like Michael Penix.
Well, here's an interesting thought, though. I'm sorry. I
was just going to say Caleb Williams has a better skill set, in my opinion. He's elite of elite. He's really good.
Well, let me ask you something then. I mean, if Penix is a lefty, now your blind side would become the right side. So then do you flip Andrew Thomas to the right side? I mean,
probably not. I don't think, because you don't.
Kind of something to think about. I mean, that shouldn't be a reason not to draft the guy. Don't get me wrong. Excuse me. If you have a shot at him, but I just wonder about that because right now, would you guys trust Evan Neal to protect the blind side if they went with a lefty quarterback?
I wouldn't trust Evan Neal anywhere he plays. I don't trust the blind side, front side, anywhere. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah. I mean, Andrew Thomas did play right tackle in college,
it's been a while.
But he got paid to be a left tackle.
Right.
Not that it matters. I mean, he got paid to be a blindside protector.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just, like I said, Michael Penix is really good. If you haven't seen, and I know a lot of people don't watch it. It's Washington's not a flashy school. People watch USC because USC is USC. It's a flashy school. They still play late, but sometimes they play primetime games. Washington just kind of sits out there in the state of Washington. Nobody pays attention. They play at 10 o'clock, 10:30. It's hard to find their games sometimes too. A lot of times they're not televised. But if you ever get a chance, if you have not watched Washington play, make sure you do, because I'm telling you, Michael Penix is really good. He's definitely worth the price of admission.
Yeah.
November 4th, that will be, I'll guarantee it. That'll be televised. That'll be the primetime game, but that's going to be a good one for sure.
What do you think of Lloyd Goldstein asks, what is your take if true that Caleb wants part ownership?
Well, that's ridiculous.
From what
getting it. I mean,
what I understand, and again, anything can be said on the internet. It doesn't. What I understand is, I don't know if he was misquoted or what it was, but they said no goal is too big. They're thinking part ownership, like they're thinking ownership in like 20 years, not right out of college.
Yeah,
I don't think he's asking for, hey, you're going to give me part ownership, because nobody's going to go, oh yeah, we're going to take this 21-year-old and give him part ownership of a team. I don't care how good he is. He ain't earned that. No. So I think that was totally blown out of proportion. I wouldn't consider what Chris and I do being in the media, but it is social media. And when you do anything on social media, no matter what, you want people to watch you. I always like when people say, oh, you only did that for views. Well, I mean, if I'm not doing it for views, why am I on here? I want people to view my tweets, view my Instagram, view my YouTube. It's why I do it. So I think part of that is let's let's really kind of blow this out. Let's get people to put eyes on what we're saying here and just kind of take it out of context and throw it out there that he wants to be part owner when he's drafted. And they don't get
I mean, shoot, I want front row tickets to the December 2nd Kiss concert, and I ain't getting that. Okay.
You're right.
So I don't see that, you know.
You want to
even
talk
if
about
that's-
something that would divide, you want to talk about something that would divide a locker room.
Oh my God. And it's, I don't think it's allowed.
Before. Come on.
I'm pretty sure it's not allowed. I mean, aren't the Raiders going through some kind of debate with Tom Brady now about ownership?
At the end of the day, what I would say to Caleb Williams is if you play good enough and you reach that elite level of quarterback that everybody thinks you're going to be, you won't have part ownership, but you'll be the assistant GM because that's basically what the elite quarbquarterbacks are.
Oh,
they have,
like a Russell Wilson was?
Yeah.
Denver, where he gets his own office?
Yeah. So, he's not going to be a part owner. But
I didn't understand that one.
First time I saw Caleb Williams, I said he does. When I watch him, he reminds me of Pat Mahomes. I'm not saying he's going to reach that level, especially if he's drafted by the Giants, because I have no faith that we could build a team properly. But he definitely has elite potential. I like Penix. I don't love him like BadDog goes. I like him. I worry about his age and his injuries. And he doesn't, to me, he has a really strong arm. But to me, he doesn't have, Caleb to me is the complete package. And that's not a knock on Penix. Like, Caleb Williams is one of the
He's not Caleb's skill set.
Yeah, Caleb Williams is one of the top, like, 2 or 3 quarterback prospects I've seen in the last 10 years. Like, I think he's a higher quarterback prospect than Trevor Lawrence. That's how I like this guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
And again, being a Sooner fan, I've told this story a bunch of times. 2 things that happened his freshman year in Oklahoma wasn't very good, which is rare because Oklahoma is usually really good. But they made a bowl game. They just were, they weren't Big 12 champions. Game against Texas, they're getting blown out. Spencer Rattler, who came into the season as a Heisman Trophy favorite, was having a terrible year. They were losing. Caleb Williams came back, beat Texas. That's huge for Oklahoma. But I always go back to the game against Kansas. Oklahoma's got no business even being in a game with Kansas. Kansas is much better than they were when Williams was a freshman. They went for it. It was like a 1-score game, and Oklahoma might have been by 4. Caleb Williams and Oklahoma goes for it on 4th and 2 from midfield. And he hands the ball off, and the running back is stopped. I don't remember. It might have been Eric Gray. I don't remember who the running back was. No, Eric Gray might have been in Tennessee at that time. I forgot who the running back was. But the running back stopped, and he's going backwards. And before the whistle blows, Caleb Williams literally rips the ball out of the running back's hand and gets the 3 yards needed for a first down. I'm like, that is a true freshman, 18 years old, that knew that was that intelligent to grab the ball away to keep the play alive to win the game. To me, that immediately said, not only has this guy got talent, he has an incredibly high IQ. The problem that happened to Caleb Williams this week was because of all the tank talk about the Giants and all the talk about Caleb Williams, it brought a bunch of eyes on Caleb Williams that never watched him play, never. And they saw him have the worst game of his collegiate career, and they're like, oh, this guy sucks. Oh, he has no offensive line. Look at how bad he played. They ran into a really good defense in Notre Dame. Pat Mahomes threw 4 interceptions against Oklahoma one year. It happens to the best of them. You can't judge him on one game. Judge him on the fact he won the Heisman. Judge him on the fact he has 86 touchdowns and 13 interceptions in his career. They had another 22 rushing touchdowns on top of it. And add the fact that the man just has a ridiculous amount of talent. That guy's the consensus #1 overall pick, no matter who's picking there.
Yeah, and he just combines. He's a very rare quarterback. For me, he combines elite potential with elite IQ. Yeah. And that doesn't come around often.
You're right.
And that's why I think he's going to be, no matter, like you just said, BadDog, I don't care who's picking first. Caleb
he's going. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let me ask you guys this, because I got this question today, and I think it's too soon to make a judgment either way. But somebody asked me what I thought of the job Joe Schoen has done, that, a lot of his draft class picks haven't really, exploded onto the scene, that, a good number of the free agents and guys he's traded for haven't really contributed, so that has raised questions about the job that Joe Schoen has done. To that, I say, with the draft picks, you got to give these classes 3 years. I mean, the first class last year, a lot of them were injured. So, to me, I'm like, I don't know about that. this year, again, the injuries, and I hate to use that as an excuse, but it's got to factor in, and then some of the coaching decisions and stuff. But what do you think of the job that Joe Schoen has done with this roster through 2 years?
It's incomplete. It's incomplete. I can't judge him yet. It's like judging a president 2 years into his his term. You got to see how all of his decisions play out long term. So it's incomplete. Are there things that you could start to question? Sure. Evan Neal looks very questionable. There's no doubt about it. I'm never going to slam him for the Daniel Jones decision because I still think it was the best decision. So I'm never going to slam him for that. I don't think he had much of a choice. But yeah, I think you could start to look at some of his draft picks and you could start to say, well, maybe we should keep an eye out on this guy. But he's also done some good things. And the one thing I'll say about Joe Schoen for me that is very encouraging, he has a clear plan and he's going to stick to it. And everything that he's done this offseason, as aggressive as he was, he didn't deter from the plan. He's still building this team for the long term. Every guy that he signed, there's an easy out. Outside of Dexter Lawrence, outside of Andrew Thomas, who are building blocks.
Right.
So to me, this is still a guy who has a clear plan. And as fans, we have to let him carry his plan out. Whatever he decides to do. For me, I said it from the start. I'm going to continue to say he's getting 4 years. He's getting 4 years. He inherited a mess. Just like I gave Gettleman 4 years. I'm giving him 4 years. I'm giving him an opportunity to get this team out of the crapper that it's been in. And if he doesn't, we'll talk about it in 4 years. And we'll see where the team's at. But for me, it's incomplete. I think he's made some good decisions. Bobby Okereke is looking more and more like a really good signing. A 25-year-old linebacker who's playing really well. Some of his Wandell's starting to look better. You got to let these younger players grow and see how they play out throughout the rest of their career. So Deonte Banks looks like a really good pick so far, at least for a guy that you took 24th overall. So you got to let John Michael Smith play a few more years. You got to let Kayvon play a few more years. So I just think it's incomplete. I think you can't jump the gun on Joe Schoen one way or the other.
It's a great word. Incomplete is a great word. Michael McFadden looks fantastic. 5th-round pick. Yeah. Wandale was injured last year, but remember, the game he got injured, he had 9 catches for 100 yards in 2.5 quarters. He definitely looks like he can play. Kayvon Thibodeau can play. Right? Kayvon Thibodeau is just a little inconsistent, but you've seen him come on here recently. The man can play. The man's talented. Evan Neal is a big question mark, but every GM has question marks. You don't hit on every pick. No GM is perfect. No. And yeah, they can say, oh, they gave Jones 160. But all these people that talk about the 160 don't understand how, and I'm not a capologist by any means.
Yeah.
But they don't understand the contract's constructed to where they can get out after 2024. They're not tied to him long term. And what was the alternative? Joe Schoen and company won a playoff game with a team that had no business being in the playoff game, which is the first time in 10 years the Giants won a playoff game. They come in here, they win a playoff game, and now they got off to a bad start because, hey, it happens. They played elite teams that were not ready to beat yet, and we had a lot of injuries. So he goes from having a really good year, getting to the NFC divisional round, and then we got off to a bad start against really good teams that are all going to be playoff teams. And it's like, oh, we got to fire them. These players suck. Like, I don't understand. I don't get how we played 6 games this year. We played 17. So 23 games. We're killed. We're ready to get rid of them. You're never going to build a team. You're never going to have any kind of consistency if you keep firing the GM every 2 years because we haven't gone from 4-13 to winning the Super Bowl in 2 years. That doesn't happen very often. Okay. Yeah. So again, what were you going to do with the quarterback situation? People like, you could have taken a stopgap. So you're going to tell your team, all right, we're going to go with Baker Mayfield here or Marcus Mariota and move on.
What I say to those people, Bad Dog, is, and I've seen some people say, well, you could have just started Tyrod and saved the money. What would the difference have been? You could exactly. I think people are just like, oh, he doesn't deserve that money. So, and I get it. $40 million is a lot but to me, what does it really damage the future of this team? We're talking about the possibility if this team picks in the top 3 of next year's draft of drafting a quarterback. So signing Daniel Jones did not prevent you from moving on from him after this year in terms of the long-term answer at the quarterback position.
Correct.
So it was the only realistic option. You were not starting Tyrod Taylor after your team won their first playoff game in 12 years where Daniel Jones had a very strong season. It was the only decision. So I am not going to bash Joe Schoen for signing Daniel Jones. I still think it was the right decision. I don't care if he gets replaced next year. It was the right decision.
And you look at how that contract is structured.
Yeah.
So there's you could take it as there's still a little doubt, but they did so that, they can easily transition off of him next year. Like I said, if they get within sniffing distance of a top quarterback, you bring him in, you have another, Eli Manning situation where Daniel holds down the fort, then you switch and then, you get out of the contract. It's not that bad of a contract. I know a lot of people, $160 million. No, it's not that bad.
82 million or whatever he was guaranteed. That's really what it equates to. It's guaranteed money. And it's not a lot of guaranteed money for a quarterback.
It's not a horrible contract. Look, if they were convinced that Daniel Jones was the long-term answer, don't you think he would have gotten a deal like Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert or Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen?
Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson. There's been some bad contracts out there.
They were convinced he was worth seeing if he could become the franchise quarterback, but they were not convinced that he was the franchise quarterback.
Right.
Bingo, exactly.
So
right.
It was
Bingo. You hit it right on the head.
If the guy doesn't prove himself, you move on. But it was the only decision they could have made if you're being realistic.
Yeah, people will say, well, they could have franchised him, but then you have no money to sign anybody else because that 32 million, and you can't transfer that money. That's a dead your cap. That's like on your cap. And then you had to restructure contracts to get under the cap so they could fill out a team. If you gave Daniel Jones 32 million, how you filling the team out?
Yeah.
That's
and if you're not going to try to fill out the team,
you couldn't tag Barkley. So what happens to him?
Yeah, and if you're going to try to fill out the team as best as you can, if you're not, what's the point of bringing Jones back to begin with? So it was the right decision. It was the right decision to do what they did. Sometimes the right decision doesn't work out, but it was a decision that left them the opportunity to pivot. And if this season keeps going where it's going, they will pivot, and Joe Schoen will get more, which I want. He will get more of a leash because then you will draft a rookie. He'll get 2 years, and you'll continue to build the team. So it was the right decision, and it is what it is. Sometimes the right decision doesn't produce the right results.
And to your point, if they do end up drafting a rookie quarterback, say in the first round, they actually have him for 5 years because they could always, pick up the option.
I was talking about Joe Schoen's job security. We'll have that quarterback.
Well, just on the quarterback thing, people say, well, why would you draft a quarterback and not move on from Jones next year? Remember, you would have that quarterback for up to 5 years. Yeah. So it's like getting him 4 years, and then a throwaway year. So I could see that being a scenario if the Giants get within, like I said, sniffing distance, and they need a quarterback to, if they feel that they need a quarterback to move forward, which,
you'd also have, in essence, you have 2 years to build. If you're going into, you're picking first or second, you're the Giants, you know what you're doing. You have one or two choices. You're going to say, we're going to take Caleb Williams, you take whoever, Drake May, Michael Penix, whoever you choose. And then they can immediately go, okay, we're taking this guy number 2. And then this is what we're going to do the rest of the draft because we're going to start to build around that quarterback in 2024. Even though Jones will be the quarterback, we are going to build around the skill set of the rookie. And then you also have another year of offseason signings, free agents, trades, draft to build around him again. So in essence, you have 2 years to build around a quarterback if you take one in 2024. And like Chris said, you also push back the clock on Shane and Dable or whatever, at least Joe Schoen, because the quarterback wouldn't really start till 2025. And that's when Joe Shane's clock would start. So he'd be giving himself job security by taking a quarterback if they're picking that early. So that's what you're going to do if you're a GM. He's not stupid. He has that job for a reason. Everybody, we can all be armchair GMs and Madden GMs. And the real thing's a little different. That's why I say, even with Gettleman, I say, hey, listen, that's why Gettleman does what he did. And that's why we do what we do, because we can't do that.
Yeah. And no matter what happens this year, I think Shane is going to have plenty of job security because if we finish the year strong, we win 6 or 7 games, Jones stays on the quarterback, we pick 12, he's still going to have job security because at the end of the day, he's always got in his back pocket, Jones was never my guy. So if this team falters the following year, he drafts a rookie quarterback. And if we don't pick in the top 5 this year, it just gives you more and more of an opportunity to just keep building up the team. Now, of course, if Joe Schoen doesn't hit on his draft picks, he's going to be fired. That's any GM over the course of time. So it all comes down to that. You can't miss on Evan Neal. You can't miss on Kayvon Thibodeau. These guys need to be hits. But I'm not worried about Joe Schoen and his long-term job security. I think he has a plan. And as a Giants fan, in recent history, that's all I could really ask for. Because Jerry Reese, the second half of his career, had no plan. Dave Gettleman, since he got here, had no plan. We have a GM that has a plan, and I got to wait to see how the plan carries out.
Well, speaking of plans, let me throw this one out at you. The offensive line, what's it going to take to fix this thing, or can they fix it?
Not this year.
Yeah. I always get, on Twitter, people like Joe Alt, and we can pick all the linemen we want, but everybody was high on Evan Neal. Everybody loved Evan Neal coming out of the draft. Oh man, a great pick. I was high on him. Chris, we loved that pick. He was a beast at Alabama. We were happy, and he just hasn't panned out. That happens. Well, you're going to have a lot more cap space next year. So you could always go the route of the free agent and get a proven lineman to come in here and play one of the positions. You don't necessarily need to just keep drafting rookies and throwing them in the fire. Yeah, you still want to build it up through the draft, but that might be the route they go with more cap spaces. Let's get a veteran in here. Let's get a guy, a veteran, a guy that's proven himself, not a guy off the scrap heap, not a guy that's just been kind of floating around there. Let's get a real line. I don't know who the free agents are, but maybe they go that route as far as building up a line. I don't know. Because the draft pick, you never know. It's a crapshoot. We've seen number one overalls fail. So you never know when they get to the NFL how they
tackle every position, number one overalls.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, with the offensive line, and Dog, I think you raised this point last week on the show. At this point, do you maybe go for a quarterback who maybe can be a little quicker with their processing while you continue to fix that offensive line? Because you're talking about, okay, John Michael Schmitz is definitely going to be, the center. Andrew Thomas is locked in. The other three positions, you have question marks. Can you realistically fill those three positions and answer those questions?
Right. You might have to try Evan Neal at guard next year. I mean, who knows? Maybe Evan Neal becomes a really good guard. Yeah. But you have him for another 2 years at least. If he shows improvement, you can pick up the 5th-year option on him. So I don't know. It's just they have to continue to build. It's going to be a process, but they've got to start hitting on some of these guys. That's just the way it goes. But you can pick any guy. You can pick the top prospect in the draft, and the guy may not end up being good. It happens a lot more than you think. Just because a guy goes top 5 doesn't mean he's an absolute smash. He should be, but it doesn't always work out that way.
Especially if we draft them. I mean, especially on the offensive line. But no, I think the answer is not. Well, yeah, my answer in terms of what will fix the offensive line, playing together, continuity. That's it.
Thank you.
I think as fans, we just have to realize this is going to take time. You have a rookie center. You have a right tackle. Probably will not be the future tackle of this team. But these guys are young and they have to play together. You think back to that line that became great in 2007, 2008. They didn't get great till that year. They struggled with a lot of those really good offensive linemen, and they got better over the course of time. It takes time to build a really good offensive line. So these young investments, it's growing pains. We have to let these guys grow and get better. That's it. We can't keep, like we talk about flipping coaches, we can't keep flipping linemen. You gotta figure it out with Evan Neal, whether it's at the guard, the tackle. You got to let John Michael Schmitz go through his growing pains. Maybe Azuda develops into something, maybe he doesn't, but these guys have to play together. We got to keep this unit together. That's my answer. And of course, add some more talent because we need it. But these guys.
Do you move on from Bobby Johnson? Because one of the things somebody pointed out, how many offensive line coaches have they had now?
I've said that now for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
People have been calling to fire him, and I understand it. And I do think he's going to be fired because I think he's the pound of flesh. But I don't know if I'm in favor of it because you keep firing these. We talk about the quarterback coach, the offensive line, everything. You fire an offensive line coach. There is probably not probably. I don't think there is, outside of maybe quarterback coach, a more important positional coach to a football team than an offensive line coach. We talk about cohesion. We talk about learning, and you're going to just bring in another guy. They're going to teach new techniques, the way that they want to block. Figure out a coach and stick with it. And that's what they got to do with the offensive line. So I'm not in love with firing Bobby Johnson as much as people want to blame him for everything. But I've come to the realization that it's probably going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, where they went wrong, in my opinion, was they kept fiddling with the different combinations, and then the starting unit didn't get a chance to really play much in the preseason. And I remember writing and saying, when are they going to solidify this, make a decision, and let the starting unit just get snaps together and build that cohesiveness? And I remember asking that question, and they're all professionals. They're in the meetings together. We're not worried. We're getting guys experience in case there's injuries. Yeah, but there's something to be said about continuity.
Yeah. Yeah. But
So,
I mean, I just hope if we fire him, I hope the next coach is here for at least 5 or 6 years because we need continuity on that line.
I mean, would they? I
I'll be
don't
right
know.
back. I gotta go. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know who's the. I'm trying to think who is the assistant offensive line coach. I know the guy they had last year moved on.
I'm gonna look it up.
I can't remember. I should.
Tony Sperano, that was last year. Tony Sperano.
Hold on, let me see if I can find it. I'm trying to remember who it is because the reason why I mentioned that is I wonder if he would be in line
Promoted.
to take over. Let's see, assistant defensive line, inside linebacker, receivers, offensive line coach, Christian Jones. No, that's not it. Christian Jones, assistant quarterbacks coach. How did I miss that one? Huh. Let's see. Assistant. Oh, Chris Smith is the offensive assistant.
Yeah, that's what I
offensive line.
see. Yeah, Chris Smith. Yeah.
How did I miss that with Christian Jones being the assistant quarterback coach? Oh, I missed that. Interesting. So, anyway, yeah, and I mention that because what good offensive line coaches would be out there if they wanted to move on from Bobby Johnson?
I don't know, especially seeing how much they flipped their coaches, in recent history. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I know people are going to want people fired, as they should. The team has been awful. And Bobby Johnson's going to get fired because the offensive line has been pitiful. But I'm not
part
like
of it's also but part of it's also with injuries too. So that's why I wonder if they maybe give him a reprieve.
I mean, we'll see. I wouldn't be upset either way.
I mean, because you could also make the argument, and I think it's a weak argument, but somebody, I was talking to somebody about this, and they said, well, you can make the argument that Bobby Johnson brought along John Michael Schmitz, that he was here last year when Andrew Thomas became a second team All-Pro. So you can say that he had some successes. I don't necessarily put a lot of stock in that, but I can see that point of view.
Yeah, we'll see at the end of the year. We'll see. But I'm with you. I agree with your point that especially in the offensive line, you need continuity, and that includes the coaching staff.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Let's do this since Dog's taking a break. Why don't we take our second commercial break? When we come back, we'll do your questions. So if you haven't had your questions answered, pop them into the chat box, and we'll just we'll sprinkle them in as we bring you to the finish line on this edition of Locked On Giants Live. We'll be right back. Hey, Giant fans, if you're looking for a fun and different way to play fantasy football this season, you need to check out Prize Picks. Just pick 2 or more players, predict their stats, and sit back and see how they perform. It takes less than 60 seconds to make an entry, and best of all, you can turn a few bucks into some nice cash with the right projections. Prize Picks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app, known for its quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and wide selection of players and stat types. And they offer weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts, like Taco Tuesday, when each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to give you even more value. So what are you waiting for? Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. And that promo code is LockedOnNFL for your first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Hey, Giant fans. So between my work here on the Locked On Giants podcast, on Giants Country, and being on site to bring you all the latest and greatest Giants coverage, I just don't have the time some days to get to the grocery store to make sure that my fridge is full. Well, luckily, I don't have to thanks to DoorDash. With DoorDash, I get everything I want when I need it delivered straight to my door. For years, I've trusted DoorDash to also deliver freshly made meals from my favorite restaurants, and they've never let me down. And now that they've added grocery delivery to their offering, it's made my life so much easier. DoorDash has thousands of grocery stores to choose from, so you'll find one that's in your neighborhood that's right for you. And you'll get what you ordered, or they will make it right. And you can save on all your grocery and restaurant favorites with a no delivery fee on eligible orders with a Dash Pass membership. Now, for a limited time, you can get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to $20 when you use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and 0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the promo code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout. Terms apply. All right, everybody, welcome back to Locked On Giants Live. You got Traina, Tana, and Dog. And get your questions in. Just pop them in the chat box. If I don't get to them right away, keep popping them in because sometimes the chat box goes really quick. And by the time I look over, I've missed something. So I try not to, but
I've seen Jonathan ask this a lot. So he's asked it like 8 times. He says, do you think Caleb will be a good quarterback in the league? USC is known for receivers rather than quarterback. Bad Dog and me have kind of differed on this in the past. I have never been a guy that judges a quarterback based off the school he's played at. I don't judge the school. I don't judge the helmet, rather. I judge the player. So for me, I mean, everybody always used to say that about Ohio State. Look at CJ Stroud this year. I mean, the guy looks like a top 10 quarterback in the league, especially with the supporting cast that he's been surrounded with. So to me, that means nothing to me. The fact that he played at USC. I watch Caleb Williams. I see a great quarterback prospect. So for me, that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Oh, you're muted, Bad Dog.
You're muted, Dog.
Sorry, he's not a USC guy. He's an Oklahoma guy. He was recruited by Oklahoma. He was recruited by Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley went from Oklahoma to USC, brought Caleb Williams with him. He's not a USC guy. He's an Oklahoma guy. So, but yeah, I'm not. I mean, I have never been. I say that because a lot of the top picks that have come out of USC, I have not been fans of. I did not like Sam Darnold. I did not think Sam Darnold would be good. I did not think Mark Sanchez would be good. I did not think Matt Leinart would be good. I didn't think those guys would be good. Same thing with Ohio State. There's a lot of quarterbacks that came out of there I didn't think were going to be any good. I didn't, God rest his soul. I didn't think Dwayne Haskins was going to be a great quarterback. It was Terrell Pryor. I didn't think he was going to be Cardale Jones. Like, I didn't think any of those guys were going to be great. And the same thing of Florida. Florida's another one. They've had Heisman Trophy winners like Danny Werfel that have done nothing. Tim Tebow. It happens. It's not really particularly. It's just a coincidence. Part of that, also part of the Ohio State thing and Florida thing for me was Urban Meyer. We all know Urban Meyer's a train wreck. I mean, he doesn't produce NFL type of quarterbacks. Look at what he was going to kill Trevor Lawrence's career. The best thing that happened to Trevor Lawrence was that Urban Meyer was a train wreck in himself. And then they ended up with Doug Peterson. We saw what Trevor Lawrence can do. We saw how the Jacksonville Jaguars have improved. Now they have a real NFL head coach and not some college clown like Urban Meyer. So for me, I just think a lot of it is just coincidental. You could say that about Alabama. They don't usually produce good quarterbacks either. They have in the past. Joe Namath, Ken Stabler, obviously Tua now. Jalen Hurts started at Alabama, finished at Oklahoma. So it's just coincidental. And I joke around about that. But Caleb is not again, he's a product of Oklahoma, in my opinion. Just like Jalen Hurts, not a product of Oklahoma. He went there to prove he could throw the ball because they didn't really do that at Alabama. But he's an Alabama guy, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
All right. Amazing Guy asks, can we hire an offensive line coach from another team? No, not if the guy is under contract, unless you're prepared to give him a promotion. That's how this works. You can't just go and randomly pick a guy, who's under contract. Now, if his contract is expiring, then you can maybe look to hire him if he's willing to move on. But you just can't go and say, hey, I want to hire, the offensive line coach from the Dallas Cowboys, for example. So, that's hopefully you should answer that question.
Munchak is the name I've heard a lot. Mike Munchak being the offense or the line coach for the Giants. A lot of people like him.
Yeah. There was it was Callahan I'm thinking of. I think the Giants had a chance to get Callahan, but he wouldn't come because Garrett was here. At least that's what I heard. I don't know if that's true, but
it probably is.
But
Giants fans didn't come to the game because Garrett.
Max Castro asks, what do you attribute the constant injuries that happen to us always? Max, I mean, first off, football's a violent game. Stuff's going to happen. Guys are going to, tear muscles, feet are going to get stuck in the turf and get rolled up on or twisted the wrong way. Bones are going to get broken. Now, the soft tissue injuries, that's the question I would like answered, because they have these sports science people. They use GPS tracking. How are these soft tissue injuries continuing? I know they have, yoga and massages and Pilates and all the stuff to, stretching to make sure that there's no soft tissue issues, but yet they continue to happen. That would be the question that I would like to have answered, not injuries in general, because some injuries are just going to happen. And I think if if I were to go to Joe Shane and Brian Dable at the end of the year and say, why all these injuries? They're going to say, oh, well, it's a violent game. But if we say, why all the soft tissue injuries when you have all this technology and knowledge, what's going on here? That to me, I think is the question that needs to be asked.
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying. And the stats definitely show that the Giants have had more injuries than the average team in the NFL over the last 10 years or whatever it's been. But I think a big part of it is we notice the injuries more than other teams. Like I think every team has injuries. Like you said, football is a game of injuries. But because our team is not properly built, because we don't have depth, when we have injuries, it cripples our team. When you look around the league, the Eagles had plenty of injuries the last couple of weeks. They're still 5-1. We're not a team that's built as good as a lot of the teams around the league. So we're not built to be able to sustain injuries. So the stats do say we've had more injuries than other teams, and I'm sure the training staff has something to do with that preparation and everything else. But I think a big part of it is we notice the injuries more because our team's not very good.
Yeah. And last year they had injuries too. And I always go back to the Super Bowl team, 2007, when they had something like 20 guys on injured reserve. Yeah. Nobody really was talking about it because they were winning. And it's, not to minimize injuries for anybody, but sometimes it's who's being injured that really makes it stand out. Like for me, having Andrew Thomas miss all this time, that's like having 5 guys injured because that's how big that is.
He's our whole line. You like Lane Johnson got hurt last week for the Eagles. They're still going to block. Mm-hmm. But if Andrew Thomas goes down for us, our line's dead. Yep. So, we're not properly built either. We got to continue to build properly.
That goes back to the thing that I said about depth. Did you have enough depth? Yep. I mean, I questioned some of the choices they made when they filled out the roster for the offensive line. But, that's all water under the bridge, I suppose. But, they had the injuries, again, why the soft tissue injuries when you have sports science people, you've got GPS tracking, you've got all these things in place to help you. Why? That's what I want to know. Now,
wish I had an answer for why they're always hurt, because it's frustrating.
It really is.
It really is, because it's not just to our start, it's like to our best starters. This is how, to the key component.
And when it rains, it pours.
Right. The left tackle, the running back, the quarterback, our 3 most important positions.
Yep. The 3 guys that were most indispensable on my list at any rate. All right. Scott Young asked, does Dable look to you guys in press conferences as a frustrated man?
How could he not be?
Sometimes. For the most part, I think he tries to stay even keeled. Yeah. But sometimes you can detect a little bit of frustration when he speaks.
Yeah, I even detected it last year, even when the team was playing well, Patty. Like when a member of the media would ask him a question that he didn't like or he thought was stupid, you would see some frustration on his face. I just think Dable's a guy. He's an emotional guy. You see it on the sideline. He's not scared to share his emotions. I do think, though, like you said, for the most part, when it comes to the press conferences, he does set the tone. And you saw it last year when the team was winning. He would always be like, we can't get too high. We got to worry about next week. And I think that's the tone that he sets for the most part. But he's an emotional guy. There's going to be times where, you can't help it. It is what it is. And I can't blame the guy. The team's 1-5. Any head coach would be upset right now. It doesn't look good.
Sure. I mean, Dable, I think he tries to help the media as best as he can. But sometimes, it's like there are questions that are asked that you just know he's not going to answer. And I don't understand. I suppose, maybe you get lucky, you ask a question and he'll answer it. But sometimes I think that the frustration kind of runs both ways, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, all right. Jonathan Chris has been asking this question, so let's get it up there. What's the update on John Michael Schmitz? Jonathan, I don't know. He's been a mystery. We talked about that earlier in the program. I saw him in the locker room, and he seemed to be moving fine, with the shoulder. He was reaching out for stuff in his locker. He didn't have a wrap on his shoulder or anything like that. That doesn't mean that, that doesn't mean anything, because maybe he had just come from getting treatment, but I really don't know what's going on with him. I have not been able to get any kind of indication if it's the AC joint, if it's, a stinger, what exactly is going on with him. So I'm in the dark on that one.
It's weird.
Hopefully, he gets out there soon because we need him to grow.
I hate that they're so secretive, like you mentioned earlier about how they don't tell you anything, and I don't know why they can't just say, yeah, he's got this. This is what's wrong with the shoulder.
Because it's HIPAA. I really believe that's part of it. It's like they'll tell you the minimum to meet league requirements, but
yeah, I think it's
I'll tell you. You go back to who was it? Tommy Sweeney and his medical issue. I mean, it was never announced what he had, but I think a good number of us knew what it was, just based on what came out or what we learned about it. But it's HIPAA. It's HIPAA. So I get that. I respect that. I know it's frustrating for the fans because you want to know, okay, if we know for sure it's a sprained AC joint in the shoulder, we know that he's going to be out for X number of weeks. I get that. But that's what I think Dable is trying to do, be protective of these guys, especially of their medical privacy.
Yeah, and I also think it's gameplay. I think Dable doesn't want to tilt his hand too much week to week, where he gives his opposition too much of a head start in terms of the game plan. Let them think a little bit, even if it's a little bit of doubt. Daniel Jones may be able to play this week. You know what I'm saying? I think that's a part of it too. You don't want to give away too much information if you don't have to.
Yeah, but you know what, Chris? I mean, sometimes you could tell.
I agree with you. I can read
like this week. Okay, he's saying that there's a chance Daniel plays. I'd be stunned if Daniel is out there on Sunday.
He's not playing. Yeah.
I don't think he's playing. Yeah. So you got to use common sense to a certain degree, and say, okay, you know what? This is what he's saying, and but go look at the clues. He didn't throw all week with the team drills. He's not cleared for contact. You mean to tell me he's going to be cleared for contact in 2 days? I mean, I hope he is. I mean, that would be great if he is. I don't see it happening. And oh, by the way, you've just practiced the entire week with Tyrod Taylor in there. Don't tell me, well, Daniel knows the system. He can go back in. Okay, yeah. But you just practiced the entire week. That's like, for a play, practicing with the understudy, or rehearsing with the understudy, and then comes the night of the performance. Oh, the star is ready to go in there. I don't think that quite is how it works.
No chance he's playing this week. He might not play next week. He's definitely not playing this week.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to play next week. I mean, you got the Jets next week, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yep. Is it the Jets? And they're pretty, that defense is pretty.
The defense is really good.
They might be the best defense in the league. I mean, look what they kept Pat Mahomes in check. They kept the Bills in check. You name a top deep offense, they've kept them in check this year. So Jets have a really good defense.
They ain't played Miami yet. That'll be a battle.
Yeah.
All right. Peter Randazzo says HIPAA laws do not come into play in the NFL. Yeah, they do, Peter. They do. And I'll give you a perfect example. Remember a few years ago when JPP's medical records got splashed all over the internet? That was a HIPAA violation. So yeah, HIPAA laws are into play. Now, what teams do is the league says you have to specify what part of the body is injured. You don't necessarily have to say what the injury is to the part of the body, but you specify what part of the body, is injured. And that's why you don't see, sprained MCL for a knee. You'll see knee. That's why, you'll see finger injury, but it won't say thumb or pointer or whatever, so there is a degree where, they try to protect somebody's, medical privacy.
Yeah.
So, Amazing Guy said, wasn't that Renan or ESPN? I think wasn't it Schefter that posted his records
Oh, I don't
Is it,
remember.
I don't remember. I don't remember who it was, but yeah. So anyway, and yeah, Peter, if you do find that link, send it to me. But that's my understanding of how the Giants treat it. I'm not. Some teams do it that way. Not every team is as forthcoming. So Dable, that's how he operates. Again, I know it's frustrating, but I think that's how Belichick operates, if I'm not mistaken, right? And
Oh,
where did he come from?
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So Washington, what's the X factor for this game, guys? What do you think needs to happen for it to go the Giants' way?
It's on the defense. That's it. It's for me. It's on the defense. We have to create multiple turnovers. We have to get pressure on a team that has surrendered a ton of pressure this year. By far our better unit right now, especially with Daniel Jones out, Andrew Thomas out, is the defense. They have to win this game for us. So we got to create pressure with the front four without having to blitz too much. Like you said, we kind of dialed back the blitz a little bit last week, and we were still able to generate some pressure and create some turnovers. Same thing this week. You're going up against a really bad offensive line. Take advantage of it. That's the X factor for me. And of course, on the other side, our offensive line can't get completely destroyed. But I think it starts with coming out with a very conservative game plan offensively and trying to run the ball as much as you possibly can. We got to get after Sam Howell and create some turnovers, and I think we will.
Yeah, the X factor for me is our red zone offense. It was bad against Buffalo, obviously 0 for 5. We haven't scored an offensive touchdown in 13 quarters. As much as the defense is going to win this game, I do believe, I mean, if we win, it's going to be because of the defense. And I do believe that we can force turnovers. Offense has to capitalize on them. We were close. Close doesn't count. It counts on horseshoes and hand grenades, and that's about it. Doesn't count that he got to the 1 yard line twice and couldn't punch in, actually 3 times, really. But, you couldn't punch it in from the 1. Now, granted, one of those was a mistake by Tyrod Taylor. And honestly, if you were ever going to run, the end of the game would have been a good time to do it because you had one play. The time didn't matter at that point on first and goal. You had one untimed down. You call your best play. In my opinion, if you're going to run the ball, you do it there as opposed to when they did it.
Reverse.
But I think the defense is going to have a good game. Like I said, Miami, they put up a ton of points against everybody, but we forced 3 turnovers against them. The pass rush has been better. Yeah, they're not getting sacks, but you can see pressure from Dexter Lawrence has gotten better. Thibodeau has gotten better. Micah McFadden and Okereke have certainly improved over the last 3 weeks. I think that Washington can't, I think we can get to Sam Howell. And I think that when they get there, they got to drop them. But that red zone offense to me, without a doubt, is the X factor. We got to find a way to get, I know they targeted Darren Waller down there, but we got to get the ball to Darren Waller down there. That red zone offense is going to be important because Washington and the Giants always seem to play close games. It's very rarely a blowout. They're very ugly games, 23-20s, the 20-19s, the 19-16 type of game. The team that, capitalizes in the red zone, the team that's winning this game. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And the offensive line, obviously, hopefully they hold up. The defense, just going back to your point, by the way, I've got to say this. I said it on Twitter. Okereke should have been defensive player of the week, win or lose. And I told them that. I said, you've been playing out of your mind. And, he was very appreciative of it. But how cool has it been to see him finally establish a comfort level in that defense?
Yeah, the last 2 weeks, you've really seen him start to take off. He's been great. For the Giants, which is encouraging. We haven't had a good middle linebacker in forever. So
it's like, whoa, this is what linebacker play looks like.
Yeah, I'm really excited about what he is going to become hopefully for this team for the next 3 or 4 years. And that's a great point about the red zone offense BadDog brought up, and some of that has to fall in the play calling too. Like we gave the play calling so much credit last year. We were a top 5 red zone offense, which is insane. From where we came from, we were dead last the year before, and it's like we reverted back to that. I know Barkley's been out. That has something to do with it. I mean, not having but last week he was in, and we were 0 for 5. But
and we started the first 6 quarters of the year at Barkley. We didn't score a point.
Yeah. So it's just been a mess. I think a lot of that falls on the play calling for sure. So they got a lot of credit last year. They deserve to take some blame. I think, especially inside the 20, play calling is a major factor. So our red zone. We don't get to the red zone a lot. When we do, we have to cash in like we were able to last year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Max Castro asks, have you seen Andrew Thomas in the locker room and how does he look? And is there any news on a possible return within the next few weeks? Max, I didn't see him this week. I saw him last week and he looked like he was still moving kind of slowly. I don't know. I know they had hoped for next week against the Jets because of that defense. I would imagine, though, considering how long Andrew has been sidelined, they're probably going to want to get him through a full week of at least being limited at minimum. You know, because hamstrings, they are tricky. You don't want to rush him back. And I know people are like, well, he's been out for so long. You know, how are you rushing him back? But you want to make sure that hamstring is stable. And I know he's been undergoing all kinds of treatment for it. I'd like to see him come back for the Jet game. I don't know that I'm ready to say that, yeah, you can pencil him in for that. I think we need to see what the coming week brings. Okay. Knicks Nation, why is Leo so quiet? Dexy is getting double teamed every time Kayvon is showing up, but Leo is absolutely invisible.
I don't have an answer for you.
I don't.
Patty's take. I've been so disappointed with Leo this year.
Yeah. I don't know. I really don't know. That's why I wonder if maybe they're going to move on from him if they can.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they will either in the middle of the year or the end of the year. He's not coming back here.
No, that's a fact.
Maybe age is catching up to him. I mean, Leo's been around for a while. Who knows? I listen, I wanted them to bring Leonard Williams back. No question when we signed him. I wanted him back here. Of course, they had to mess around the contract. Then the contract was constructed poorly. You know, that's something that, you know, when we talk about GMs and, this player stinks, a lot of it has to do with the way the contract's constructed. You start backloading contracts, you're going to pay for that eventually. You can't keep doing that because then you get hit with a massive cap of $32 million for Leonard Williams at the end of the contract, where he's going to be less effective and less productive, and that prevents you from bringing in other guys that can be more productive.
Yep.
So the GM, the way they construct the contracts, has a lot to do with how good or bad a GM is. Dexter Lawrence, when he got signed, number one, Dave Gettleman traded for him in a year where we weren't going anywhere and people questioned the trade. Then he had 11.5 sacks his free agent year, and they had to bring him back. I mean, what were you going to do? He's only had 9.5 sacks since that year. So sacks can be
deceiving.
You know, I don't want to say overrated. It's a good word for it. But he's not.
Yeah, because I see amazing guys say that Dex has 0 sacks. If you watch the games, Dex has played great.
Yeah,
0 sacks or not, the guy gets constant interior pressure. So sacks don't tell the whole story.
Right.
But Leo's like not pushing the pile. He's getting pushed. He's just not playing well.
Yeah,
Leo, I think, has had a lot of tread on his tires.
Yeah,
and I wondered about it because you look at the amount of snaps they asked him to play, and then you add in the injuries, how he's starting to break down. And you just wonder now if his career is on the downslide.
He had a neck injury last year, right? He also had a neck injury last year.
Yes.
So, and then he had something this year that was kind of nagging him at the beginning. I forgot what it was.
I forgot what it was too.
I'm not going to say he's not like healthy. I'm not going to use that as an excuse.
Nobody's really healthy.
Well, and maybe Leo's just like, you know what? It don't really matter at this point. I got my big paycheck, and whatever happens at this point. Maybe who knows? I don't know. Some guys break down. I mean, he's been in the league a long time. He did have very good years for us.
He's 29, 30 years. What is he, 29 now?
I think he's going to be 30
so
he's been around longer than I thought. He was like 32.
No, I don't think he's that old.
There is a lot of mileage on Leo.
No question. No,
and he might not be fully recovered from the injury either. I mean, he was banged up last year.
That's a good point. That is a good point. Maybe it's still bothering him. I think he had a neck injury, and he was cleared and everything, but sometimes that can pop back, and just because a guy's not on an injury report doesn't mean that he's not getting treated for something. I can tell you probably every guy in that locker room who is taking snaps is being treated for something. It's just a matter of who can push through and not have it, cut into his allocated practice snaps, So
speaking of which, we talk about Dexter Lawrence and have any sack again. I take PFF with a grain of salt, whatever. But on Twitter today, because I actually reposted this, PFF said Dexter Lawrence is the only interior defender with an 85 plus pass rush and run defense grade. He's the only guy.
He's been great.
So he's 85, he's plus 85, or 85 pass rush. That's pretty good. Just because you're not getting a sack don't mean you don't have a good pass rush. It's hard for those. Aaron Donald's an anomaly. You don't usually get a ton of sacks from your tackles. That's just not the way it goes. It's usually your edge rushers that get the sacks. So you can't expect Leo to have, or I'm sorry, you can't expect Dexter to have 10 sacks, 8, whatever. Those guys' job is to clog the interior, make sure the quarterback can't step up in the pocket and jam the run. That's really what they're supposed to do. A sack is a bonus. That's supposed to be coming from, Bobby. Well, if they blitz, okay. It's supposed to come from Kayvon Thibodeau. It's supposed to come from Azeez Ojulari. He's hurt. Isaiah Simmons. Those are your guys where you're really supposed to get your numbers from. But we don't get them anywhere. Thibodeau's got 80% of our sacks. I think Micah McFadden has the other one.
Yeah, Micah McFadden's been playing lights out.
He's been awesome. Again, how many sacks? It just stats. They can be misleading. They really can be.
Right. Yeah. And Wink always says, I can tell Wink is not a fan of Pro Football Focus. So you ask
really either, but what else do we?
Well, not in terms. I still don't understand their grading system, and I think it's subjective because sometimes you don't know, or a lot of times you don't know what the call is and the assignment is, so you guess. But that being said, the raw data, like yards after the catch and coverage yards and stuff like that stuff is certainly valuable, I think.
Yeah.
But to each his own. I don't want to disparage what they do, but the grade.
You take it with a grain.
Like if I slapped grades on, exactly. It's like I have my own way of grading. Well, that might not be the way the coaches are grading. So, all right, this question, Knicks Nation's been trying to push this through. Why do you think the red zone offense is so bland this year? Is it because of the O-line? I don't know. I mean, that could be part of it, I suppose. But I go back to wondering if there's maybe too many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to the play calling on offense.
Yeah, that's part of it. And let's be honest, we've also gone up against some incredible defenses.
That's true.
That doesn't help your offensive numbers either. I mean, the Cowboys have a top 3 defense in the league. 49ers have a top 3 defense in the league. Buffalo has a very good defense. We've gone up against some upper echelon defenses too. So that plays a part, missing some of our players. And I think the play calling hasn't been quite as good as it was last year. So I think it's a multitude of things.
Yeah. I mean, it is a mixture of stuff, and
I also think it must wear on the offense. I mean, they know the numbers. They know they're not scoring, and you might start to press when you get down there. And there might be plays to be had, like the play to Darren Waller was there to be had when Jones threw the pick six. He needed to wait literally a split second longer. Waller comes wide open. But because they're pressing, because they're hurried, because they're hasty, haste makes waste. He made a mistake. He stared him down. It was almost like immediately he's like, I'm just going here. I'm just turning around and I'm throwing it here because I have a second and a half to get rid of the ball. You got to break those habits. You have to be able to read the field, and no matter if you get hit or not. You have to. You're a quarterback. That's your job. You must read the defense in the field, especially pre-snap. You got to know where this stuff's coming from. It's a big job that a quarterback does that we don't see. Because we just see them throwing the ball and taking sacks. We don't know what they're doing before. But when there's missed blocks and guys coming free, there's some kind of miscommunication. Like he needs to check these things down and say, hey, that guy over there, this guy's the mic, whatever. You got to figure it out. But I think it's like you said, Patty, it's a combination of bad play calling, bad execution, and bad decision making, and
perfect storm.
A lot of it's hurried and they're pressing.
Yep, perfect storm, absolutely. Okay, I just saw something. Oh, here's a question from Jonathan Chris. What do you think about Simmons? Not much from him. That's another mystery. I got to be honest with you. Now, we talked about that a little bit earlier. That maybe they were thinking of ultimately putting him in there with Okereke, but McFadden's play has just made that not happen. But I thought we would see Simmons, blitz a little bit more, go after the quarterback and hunt the quarterback. And we haven't. And I don't understand why.
Yeah.
He's a unicorn. I mean, that's what Wink wanted. He doesn't have a position. He was a positionless guy. So it's not like McFadden should take snaps away from him, because you're supposed to be able to put Simmons anywhere in this, outside of like cornerback, obviously. But I mean, he was a safety in college. So you literally could play him in a bunch of different positions. I don't know why they haven't gotten creative with him, honestly.
I wonder if they had sometimes I really wonder. It's like these trades come down. A lot of times sometimes they happen quickly. Do you really have a plan for a guy? It's like, it's like if I say, oh, and this is going to be a woman thing, obviously, but if I say, oh yeah, I want this jacket. And now all of a sudden I don't have a plan for when I'm going to wear the jacket or how I'm going to wear the jacket. Sometimes it's like that with players. It's like they acquire players and it's like, oh yeah, we'll find a spot for him. And meanwhile, you've got everything kind of set up, and then somebody steps up and it's like, now where do you fit the guy in?
Yeah, I was curious because I just pulled up Simmons snap counts. He's been all over the place. He played he has 5 of the 6 games this year. He's played 33% of the snaps or less. And the Miami game, he played 100% of the snaps. The only thing that makes sense to me in that game is a lot more speed on the field. So they probably felt like they needed to have him out there more. But last week he had his lowest snap percentage of the year. He was only on the field for 18% of the snaps. So he had a reduced role last week. So I think some of it's matchup dependent too, I'm sure, based off the teams they're going up against. But yeah, I agree with you guys. I thought they would use him more in terms of being a pass rusher than they have.
Yeah, it is surprising for sure. But all right, Jay Pesso asks, why haven't we seen more of Jordan Riley? DJ Davidson's kind of played better. It's that simple. Jordan Riley is a young player. He played well, obviously, in the preseason, but you stack up the competition, and the coaches just feel that they've been able to get more from DJ Davidson. And I have to look this up, but I wonder if special teams is also a factor here, because I know DJ has played on special teams. I don't know if Jordan Riley did. I have to look that up to see. I don't think he's done a whole lot, so that could also be part of the reason why we haven't seen more of Riley. But Riley, make no mistake, I think down the line you'll see more of him. But DJ Davidson, has been productive when he's gotten his few chances. So
yeah, I mean, I love what I saw from Jordan Riley in the preseason. So I definitely think he's going to get his opportunity at some point. But yeah, it's a deep position. I mean, it hasn't been living up to the expectations that we thought going into the year, but it's a deep position. So I'm not shocked that a 6th, 7th round pick or whenever we took him at that position hasn't really seen the field yet. So I'm not surprised by that. But as the year goes on, I'm sure he'll get he'll get a growing opportunity.
Yeah, and somebody also mentioned with injuries, just to go back to that. Do you remember everybody was screaming about the MetLife Stadium turf, and they changed the turf out, and the injuries are still happening?
Mm-hmm.
So, somebody had asked me, well, is it the turf? No, they changed out the turf. And, players will say they want grass, but you know what? Injuries do happen on grass too. Let's not kid ourselves. So I go back again with regards to the injury situation. What are these sports scientists how are they evaluating and what are they telling the coaching staff and the training staff? How is the strength and conditioning staff, what kind of program are they working on? Are they customizing it to the players, individuals, or are they just saying, okay, all you offensive linemen do this type of workout, all you quarterbacks do that type of workout? These are some of the questions. And unfortunately, I don't know if we'll ever get answers to some of these, but I would be curious about, some of this stuff.
Yeah. Bring up some good points.
Yep. Adoree Jackson, for those who missed it, he is listed as questionable with a neck injury. Another guy with a neck injury.
Next,
man, I'm telling you.
You figure Flott will probably get the start if he's out, right?
I think Adoree will play. I would be surprised if he doesn't. I didn't get the impression Adoree's injury was as bad.
Good.
I talked to him a little bit this week, and he seemed okay, because we were talking about, I was telling him about my neck, and I'm like, dang, these neck injuries, right? And he's like, yeah, and I said, how you doing? And he said, oh, I'm doing okay. I'll be fine. I'll be out there. He might have just been saying that. I don't know, but we'll see. We'll definitely see.
He's been really disappointing this year, Dory.
That's why he probably will not be back next year.
Yeah, even if he was good this year, back, but he's been not very good this year, Dory. I thought he was, last year he played pretty well. He hasn't been good this year.
I wonder if maybe he's checking out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Excuse me a second. Sorry, guys. I'm getting dry throat here.
I always bring a lot of soda with me.
Well,
I always make sure I have a 2-liter on hand.
You know what? It gets the dry heat in my office gets to me.
Yeah, it happens on here too.
And you can hear a difference. It's like you can always tell when I record my shows if I sound good. I'm recording it earlier in the day. When I sound like this, it means that the dry heat. Sorry, the dry heat.
And he's in the desert over there. Got
tumbleweeds
blowing around in the background, a couple of cactuses.
What's weird is that in the summertime, it's freezing down here. The air conditioning makes it so cold. And in the wintertime, it's like I boil. And I've got a sweater on. So but I have my water, and if I need to, I've got lozenges. But yeah, I do, and plus don't forget, I had a cold a couple weeks ago, which I'm sure is
That's right.
Yeah. But anyway, okay. David Tay asks, we have a top 5 pick. We pick O-line or QB?
Depends. Depends on how we feel about the quarterbacks. I mean, whichever quarterback may be there. I mean, probably there's going to be 2 quarterbacks to go with the first 2 picks. So, the way that people are talking about Drake May along with Caleb Williams. So depends how they feel about that next batch of quarterbacks. If we're picking like 5th or 6th, depends.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think, Doug? I mean, I think it depends. I mean,
yeah, I mean, obviously they would have to go with what they probably BPA at that point. If a quarterback falls to 5 that they like, if for whatever reason Drake May's there, they take him. If they feel like Marvin Harrison Jr. is the guy and he's there at 5, they take him. I think that's just the case with wherever you're picking. Depends on who's there for you to be had. They may have a guy in mind that they want that's not there, and they have to go a different route. Or maybe somebody falls into their lap and like, this is absolutely perfect. So, I mean, look at last year. They traded up 1 spot to make sure they got Deonte Banks. But so you don't know. Maybe they want a guy and they move from 5th to 3rd. That's also possible. Yeah. But we'll see where we're picking, and we got a long ways to go here. And it's all
it's too soon for that. I know, guys, I'm not going on the injury report because I dug out my Ricola. Love these things. So hopefully will calm my dryness down here. So don't sweat it. I'll be there Sunday. Although it's interesting, I still say I got the head cold from Monday Night Football a couple of weeks ago, but hey, it's okay. It's part of the job. So let me see. I just saw a question that went by. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Oh goodness. All right. Peter Randazzo said he sent an article to all 3 of us regarding the HIPAA stuff. Oh, here we go. Big Blue 56. Do you see the Giants making any moves at the trade deadline? I think it's going to depend on how the next 2 games go. Wouldn't you say? I mean, if they lose to Washington, I think it's conceivable.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to be crazy. I don't think Joe Shane's going to go nuts and just, everything must go.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to do that. But I think he'll be open to trading away players. More than likely, no matter what, I think he's going to be, unless we win the next 2, then maybe you open the door. Okay, you can get to 4 and 5 with the win against the Raiders, and we'll see how we do for the rest of the year. Then maybe just kind of doesn't do either, buy or sell. But I definitely don't think we'll be buyers. If we're going to be traders, obviously, I think we'll be sellers. And I'm leaning we will be. But like you, I don't expect a fire sale. Like all these fans on Twitter saying, oh, they're going to trade. They should be open to trading 8 players. That's not going to happen. But I think they'll be open to trading a player or 2 if the right deal is there, for sure.
Yeah.
As they should be.
Yeah. And to that end, David Tay asks about trade predictions. I'm going to say maybe, again, I'm going to go with Leo.
Sounds like you think Leo, right? Yeah.
Leo and maybe, like I said, maybe one of the receivers gets moved out. Maybe I could see Hodgins, maybe. So those would be the two I would predict. Have
I'm
no
gonna
inside info
predict-
on that, by the way. It's just a gut feeling.
I'm going to predict Saquon.
You think they will move Saquon?
I think they're going to move Saquon. Yeah,
Wow.
I don't know that for sure. And I think the right deal has to be there. I don't think they're going to, like I said, I don't think they're going to give him away for nothing. But I think there's going to be a team, and which team it is, I'm not sure. But I think there'll be a team out there that looks at Saquon and says, this is a guy that can get us to a Super Bowl level talent. You know, we have everything else. He could be that extra weapon that could really take this team to the next step. And I think a team will be willing to give up a second-round pick, maybe even a little bit more. Not a first-round pick, but maybe a second-round pick plus to acquire a guy like Saquon Barkley. And if he's not in the long-term plans for the New York Giants, I think it's very likely they could trade him.
I agree. I mean, San Francisco went out and got Christian McCaffrey last year for that exact reason. So,
Yeah.
as I mentioned, Baltimore is a team that lost a running back at the beginning of the year. Him and Lamar Jackson, that'd be pretty good.
Yeah, but here's the thing though with Saquon. I mean, unlike Christian McCaffrey, who's under contract, Saquon isn't. So in essence, you're kind of renting him unless you know, because he can't sign a new contract. I don't think, you know, even if he gets traded, he cannot sign a new contract this year. So if you're a team, do you make that trade and maybe do like a wink type of deal that, hey, you know, after the season's over, we're going to sign you? Or do you just say, yeah, you know what, we'll wait and see. Maybe we can get him for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. But like Chris said, if it's a player that you think you can win a Super Bowl with, you do it. It does not matter. The future don't matter. You win a Super Bowl, you've already won. It doesn't matter if you bring Saquon Barkley back in a long-term deal or not. You rent a guy and you end up winning, you won. It doesn't matter. So, but
yeah, I think if you're a team like, I'm trying to think of a team where it would really make sense. I mean, the Ravens, people have said. I think that's a popular one people have said, but I'm sure
Buffalo, maybe.
Yeah, I do like James Cook though, but maybe Buffalo would make sense. A team that's like right there that they feel a Saquon could put them over the top. At the end of the day, what's a second round pick? If you have an opportunity for a guy that you feel could put you into Super Bowl contention. So I think there'll be a team out there, maybe even 2 or 3 teams that are willing to part ways with a second round pick for Saquon Barkley. So that's what if he stays healthy and the Giants continue to lose, I think that's a real possibility.
Okay, so then let me ask you this, because initially I think when Gettleman drafted Saquon, they were trying to build the offense around him. Obviously, that kind of gravitated towards build the offense around the quarterback. If Jones is not the guy, who are you building this offense around? Or are you not building it around something?
That's been my devil's advocate point for the last 3 weeks when people have told me that it's a no doubt they shouldn't even think twice to trade Saquon. I think there is thinking involved because of what you just said. You got to be able to support the quarterback next year, whether that's Jones or whether that's a rookie. You got to be able to support the quarterback next year. And if you get rid of Barkley, we see how depleted this offense is to begin with. We saw the difference last week. A lot of people are giving Tyrod Taylor the credit, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Taylor. I thought he played well as I could have hoped. Barkley had a lot to do with it. He's very important to this offense. So I do think there's some thinking involved in it. I'm not just giving away Barkley for nothing. I have to get something where I could get a weapon next year to help this offense. Maybe a running back in the second round. But I agree with you. I don't think it's a slam dunk decision. Just trade Barkley to trade him. No, I think there is thinking that goes involved in it, especially
some people are mentioning Detroit as a possibility to trade.
They got
Barkley.
a good running back duo though. Jameer Gibbs is good, and they signed another. What's his name?
Yeah, they drafted Jameer Gibbs, and I don't know why they would.
Yeah, and they signed.
You never know.
They have a good
duo. The thing is, I mean, they did draft Jameer Gibbs, and Barkley may be a rental for a team like Detroit.
The Browns do make sense. The Browns lost Nick Chubb. They can make. They're a team that's starting to show promise with their defense. Maybe they say to themselves, we could be that that great Super Bowl winning type defense. We get a guy like Barkley. That's a great match for the defense. We have the strong offensive line. That's a team I haven't thought about that I can see making a lot of sense. The Cleveland Browns.
Yeah. I mean, but we'll see how Barkley gets through. I mean, last week there were times when you could tell that ankle was still an issue. Fortunately, he came through the week. No worse for the wear. He wasn't on the injury report. Well, he didn't receive a injury designation, so that's the good news. So, we'll have to see with him. But I do think, and I had said this at the start of the year, I said if Barkley misses any time, I think that's going to hurt his chances of being re-signed by this team.
Yeah, he's not going to be. The only way he's coming back next year, I think, is a tag.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm leaning he'll be traded. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if he stays. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
I know he doesn't want to be traded, but
I don't want him to be traded either. But ideally, I don't want him to be traded.
Because he takes such great pride in being a leader and representing this franchise. But you just get the impression, and plus you look at Joe Shane's history coming from Buffalo, they just don't put a premium on running backs.
Right.
So, all right, let's take a couple more real quick. Peter Rondonzo, biggest question of the year. Will we score more than 14 points this week on offense?
I think we're going to score more than 14 points, but I don't know if they're going to all be attributed to the offense.
I'm going to say yes, we do. The hottest of hot takes. I said this before, Tyrod is even named a starter. So my hot take of the week is that Tyrod Taylor throws more passing touchdowns than Sam Howell does in this game. Doesn't mean we're going to win, but I think Tyrod Taylor throws more touchdown passes this game than Sam Howell. It's my hot take.
All right, here's a better question. Does this team score its first touchdown on offense in the first 30 minutes of the game?
Yes.
I think so too.
I'm going to say no.
Ooh. Why
but
are
I
you
could
saying no?
Well, here's what I'll say. I could see an assisted offensive touchdown from the defense. Like we get a turnover inside the 20, but I don't think we'll have an 80-yard drive for a touchdown in the first half. I think Washington has a good defense, and I don't think Tyrod Taylor is very good. So I know he played pretty well last week, but I think it's gonna be a grinded out game. I don't think we're gonna be scoring a ton of points in this game offensively. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Then on that note, before we wrap up, let's do predictions. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
20-17 Giants. I think the defense creates at least 2 turnovers, short field position. I think Barkley goes for about 80 to 90 yards on the ground, similar to last week. I think we control the clock. I think we make enough big plays to eke out a win, and the Giants win by 3. 2017 Giants.
Yeah, they had a field goal each team for me. I think the Giants win 23-20. And again, I just think it's just one of those typical Washington, New York games. Knock down, drag them out, back and forth. Both teams are about even. The records aren't even, but you look at who Washington's played. They played Atlanta. They played Arizona. That's the team we beat. And I forgot the other team that they beat, but nobody. Oh, Denver. So they beat Denver.
Their best performance was the loss to Philadelphia. That was their best performance. Yeah.
But they lost to Philly. They got blown out by Buffalo. They got blown out by the Bears. I definitely think we're on this team's level. And I think we win a close one by a field goal.
I'm going to say Giants 23-17. I think
right in the middle there, right in the middle.
Look, the defense has been, stepping up. I like what I've seen from them the last couple of weeks. I think they can force Sam Howell into making some mistakes. The offense, I'm going to say this will be the week they finally score in the first half of the game. I mean, other than a field goal. I think, Washington is susceptible in the defensive secondary. They have a great defensive front, which worries me against that offensive line. But I think the Giants will hold up and they will come out with a win. And if they don't, I'm not getting on Twitter after the game because rest in peace to my mentions.
Twitter's been a disaster. I mean, I can't. Even if they win, I mean, you're not gonna be able to say anything positive beating Washington. But I agree with you. I think it's gonna be a grinded out game. I think we're all in the same ballpark. We're all in the high teens, low 20s, about a 3 to 6 point game. So, yeah, like every Giant game when we win, I think it'll be really close. But I think we'll find a way to win.
And hopefully, they're wearing the legacy uniforms. Dog, aren't those beautiful?
I love them. My favorite uniform.
Yep.
They should be always their jerseys. That and the color rush. They should be their jerseys all the time.
I agree. At least they got rid of those ugly red ones. I'm sorry. I hated those red jerseys.
People love the red ones.
I did not like them.
A huge fan. I didn't mind them. I was never a big fan of those.
did not like him. But
So
anyway,
Cecil talk about my Saquon to the Browns. He said they're not close to winning anything. The Browns, to me, Cecil, and I watched them the other week. The Browns have a Super Bowl defense.
They just beat
And
the 49ers
They
with
just beat the
TJ
49ers
Watt.
with a backup
Walker,
quarterback.
right.
If Deshaun Watson gets it together and you had Saquon Barkley with that defense, I wouldn't obviously peg them as Super Bowl favorites, but could they be a team like the Titans from a few years ago who got to an AFC championship game? Wouldn't shock me. So I could see them being interested in a guy like Saquon. I think he kind of fits the mold of that team.
They're only a half game out of the division. I mean, the Ravens are 4-2, the Browns are 3-2, and literally the Browns just beat the best team in football with a backup.
A quarterback.
That means they can beat anybody, as far as I'm concerned.
When you have a defense like that, you always have a chance.
yeah.
And what complements a great defense is a great ground game.
Yep.
Well, we'll see. It's getting close. And, like I said, we'll see what happens this weekend. If they lose, I expect something to happen the following week. What that something is, I don't know, but we're getting close. I don't think they'll go crazy, like I said, but I can see something happening. It's just a matter of who, what, where, when, how much, and what they get. So we'll have it for you. Well, I'm sure, as soon as it breaks, we will have it for you. So anyway, that's going to do it for us here on Locked On Giants Live. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Dog. Thank you, Taina. This is great having you guys back. It's been a while since the three of us got back on
3 weeks
on the live stream. So hopefully, we can do it again next week, and hopefully we will be talking about a win and feeling a little bit better about Giants Jets, which should be a very interesting week of coverage.
Sure.
So
That'll be a close game. I don't think the Jets will blow us out because I think we could keep Wilson in check, but we'll talk about that game next week.
yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. Be sure to keep it here on the Locked On Giants podcast. All new episodes next week, starting with our game review. And we will see you then. Have a good night, everybody.
Peace.